Sometimes you eat the turd sandwich. Sometimes the turd sandwich, well, it eats you.
My bad. You started talking right when I hit, and then it lagged for it to go. But what were you about to say? I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's all cool. But what I was saying right before we started recording is I know there are two things on the itinerary today. One is your Madam Web review, right?
Yeah, review / like breakdown.
Yeah, and then like mental breakdown or breakdown.
Both.
Because I listened to the Weekly Planet review earlier today of Madam Web, and boy, does it not sound good.
Yeah.
And then
I actually listened to that today as well. I was walking like a couple hours ago and was listening to that.
Yeah. And then the other thing is I know I've got my next manga study milestone ready to go. Other than that, was there another thing? Were we doing
those are the two big things. Yeah, those are the two big things. If we have time, like if we have 15 to 20 minutes, we'll do a commercial pitch. Okay. We'll play it by ear. We'll see.
All right, cool. All right. So welcome to Dismay Comics, everybody. I'm Beard.
Yeah, woot woot. Yeah, that's Beard. This is Beardless. And
hey, I'm Beard. Podcast. I'm not so Beard, and we're the Beard Grumps.
Yeah, but like Teo had mentioned before, Madam Web, I'll get into the notes a little bit. I first want to start off with, obviously I saw it, if I'm going to talk about it. Did I want to see it? No. It was not my choice. But I would say yes, I did want to see it, ultimately not because of the movie, but more my brother wanted to see it. So I was like, yeah, we'll see it. Yeah. There's nothing else out that I really wanted to see. So it's
the things we do for love.
Yes. But what got me into it was, as we're walking into the theater, I was like, well, maybe I can, like, especially whenever I sent you that picture of the empty auditorium, I was like, ooh,
yeah,
I could take this as almost like an academic review, kind of. I could really take notes while watching this.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. That's how I enjoyed the movie, was taking notes on it. Over 2,000 words worth of notes, and that's not even like paper. That's just like, that's bullet points.
Oh my god, 2,000 words in bullet points?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Ridiculous. Yeah, if I wrote it as a paper, it'd be 4,000 plus words.
Oh yeah, you should like write a thesis paper on Madam Web and get a doctorate in shitty movies.
Oh yeah.
Before we get into this, I want to go back on our text conversation that we had before you wanted to watch it. So just to preface the mindset that he and I were both in before he went into this movie, was he sent me the picture of his ticket first with the text, "I didn't choose this." I responded with, "It chose you." And then I asked, "So, like, why? Who's doing this to you?" And then he sent me the picture of the empty auditorium with the text saying, "Packed house." And then he said, "My brother wanted to see a movie, and it seemed like this is the one he wanted to see, ... Yippee." I responded with, "I'm surprised you made it in. And the sacrifices we make for family." Brandon responded with basically the same thing he said about approaching it with from like an academic sense, and that he was interested in seeing Argyle instead. So he said, but yeah, for my enjoyment, I'm going into Madam Web on an academic level to see where the issues are with the writing and how it could have possibly been corrected. And then I responded with, and this is just goes to show how classy my sense of humor is after doing this podcast for 3 years with a 1-year break. I responded with, and also to stare at Sydney Sweeney's Bohan Dunkarunk Mac Monkey Wonkaroo Mommy Honkaroos through her skin tight Spider Woman costume. Like 2 hours later.
Yeah, 2 hours later, once the movie was over, because Teo sent that while I was watching the movie.
Yeah,
You can read this next text. I had to disappoint Teo.
Yeah. Like 2 hours later, he responds with it. They hid them rather well. ... Unfortunately. I respond with, damn, now I have no reason to see it. And that's the like only, I think, relevant chunk of the conversation there.
Yeah.
To read off. Everything else just proceeds as normal.
Yeah. Yeah. If people are going in there looking for eye candy, it's more face, I guess.
Yeah,
That's not the reason I went in there, but I just know that there are some guys that might get dragged into it or just might go see it because it's like Dakota Johnson, 50 Shades of Grey, Sydney Sweeney, Euphoria. Like, so
yeah.
It's PG-13. It's not that type of movie.
Yeah. And like for a second, I was thinking, like when they announced that the release date was going to be a Wednesday, I thought to myself, why would you release a movie on a Wednesday? And then I realized, like, oh, it's Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
this is a girl superhero movie, so they're probably thinking like, hey, this is a superhero movie you can take your girlfriend to on Valentine's Day.
Which, here's the thing. Ultimately, Madam Web, I'll get into the discussion and review later, but Madam Web isn't a good movie, so hopefully you didn't take your significant other to go see it. But when I saw that, I did think that is a smart idea. If Valentine's Day is close to opening night, because opening night for most movies would be the very next night. So it's like, yeah, you could open a day earlier. That's fine. If it's like that, or if Valentine's Day is opening night, that's perfect. Because people do go out on Valentine's Day after a dinner date or whatever to go see a movie. So I think that is a good idea. Unfortunately, it's Madam Web that did this.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, if the thought process from Sony was like, oh yeah, it's a superhero movie that boyfriends can drag their girlfriends to because it's, it's got girls in it, so it's like Valentine's Day, good release date. But like, even if they are girl superheroes, I know that the thought process for a lot of big studios is like, girls will see themselves represented in the superheroes on screen. The thing is, to like girl superheroes, I feel like girls usually have to like superheroes in general first.
Yeah.
Like, superheroes aren't the sort of thing where it's like being gender specific alters who goes and sees it.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like, y'all, like, boy or girl doesn't matter. If you go to see a superhero thinking it's superheroes, not because it's boy superhero or girl superhero.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you had mentioned the gender thing. Yeah, like that's not a driving force. I know, like, some studios, especially Sony, because they don't know what they're doing, they think that's a way to get people in the seats, specifically like females in the seats. It's like, hey, female representation. But that doesn't always work, especially if, like,
The movie's
not
bad.
just I was about to say, like even before the movie came out, when the first trailer came out, like, which was 3 or 4 months ago, everyone was like, what is this? Who asked for this?
Yeah.
No one was excited for this movie.
What does this have to do with my mom who died in the Amazon while she was studying spiders?
Which I will mention before we get into my notes. That line is not in there. Obviously, if you heard the line,
I knew it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
They definitely 80-yard that for the trailers.
Yeah, if you heard the line in the trailer, you can clearly tell it's at least 2 or 3 lines pieced together, which it is.
Yeah, that line was a hack job.
Yeah. It's the most wild thing, but that's the thing. I'll get into this in a second. I'll break down how my notes are going to play out in a second. But with that specifically is that sounds very like explanatory and like
Yeah.
just weird exposition sentence slash exposition dump in a sentence.
Yeah.
It somewhat represents the movie though.
Yeah.
Like a trailer is supposed to represent the movie, and that does happen a lot in the movie, is these weird explanations that like it's only there to tell the audience something. They don't want to show it, so they'd rather be like, let's just tell them. It's very weird. But so with my notes of Madam
A
Web,
lot of that, to chime into, and a lot of that like exposition sort of thing, like excessive exposition. Like we've talked about it with Godzilla, King of the Monsters, like ad nauseum.
yeah.
Where like a lot of times it's just the studio not trusting the audience to figure things out on their own too.
Oh, and Madam Web does that a lot. We'll get
I
into
don't
that.
understand.
It's that's the thing, is it in that aspect, it seems like it's thinking everyone is like a dumb old grandma.
Yeah.
But like, what old grandma is going to see this movie? Like,
yeah.
like
I don't
it's
understand.
weird.
Why does Spider-Man want to kill them?
Like this isn't freaking Downton Abbey. This isn't 80 for Brady. Like this isn't their movie. Why are you doing this to us?
Why is Spider-Man trying to kill them in the explosion factory?
Oh gosh. All right, so getting into my doctoral thesis.
Yeah. We've delayed the notes long enough.
So how it's broken down. I'm first going to talk about things I liked with it, which isn't a lot, but there are some. Even though they're teeny tiny, there are some
Teeny tiny
things I
idiots.
liked. Things I like, issues in the movie. These can be big things as well as like minor nitpicks, but not entirely minor. It's more like, why is this there, or change this, or that sort of thing. And then the last thing is how to make it better, and that's mostly story wise. Which, with the things I complain about, issues with the movie, when I say that, just imagine you change that, and that's a way of making the movie better. I'm not going to reiterate that in the how to make it better portion, because it's like, yeah, whatever I said is bad. Just change that. Don't do that, or switch it. I'm not going to mention that in the how to make it better portion, though.
Do the opposite of the bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't keep the bad thing in. So, things I liked. The plus side is you listen to the Weekly Planets thing, so they explain the plot to you, which you pretty much already knew the plot.
Yeah.
Watching the trailer and hearing other people talk about it. So
Yeah.
I don't have to get into that. Yeah, I don't have to get into that. Listener, if you have to have exactly what the plot is, go watch a video on it. It's if you want to. You honestly don't have to. It's
go watch the Screen Rant ending explained video if it's out.
Yeah. Be that one person.
Yeah.
All right, so things I liked. Technically, there are 5, but really it's 4, because the first one, I don't know if it really counts. So the first thing I like is the idea and potential of the movie, of what it could have been. The idea is there. This whole Terminator-esque scenario with Madam Web protecting these girls from Spider Guy, who is essentially Spider Terminator. Like, the idea, there is potential there. I'll get into it later, but yeah, they squander the potential, but the idea and concept, there was something there. The next thing I liked, there is a scene. You see part of this in the trailer. So in the trailer, this is how Madam Web gets her powers. Like, I won't get into details about this, and I'm not even going to get into the Amazon rainforest thing. I'll talk about that with things I dislike later on. But there's a scene where she's an EMT. Cassie, Madam Web, she is an EMT, and she's in New York. And there's a car that it falls off, or it's about to fall off a bridge, and someone gets pulled out, and she gets caught in the car, and she falls in, and she nearly dies. And while she's nearly dying underwater, she gets her power. What I liked is the scene where Cassie is underwater near death and she's getting her powers. I thought it was cool visual effects and stuff like that with all that kind of like weird like, I don't know, it was very cool. It could have been done more though. I think they could have ramped it up and kept it going longer, but I'll at least give them that. Whoever's idea that was, you did good. You could have done better. It could have been longer and more weird and stuff. But when Cassie...
That's what my ex-wife used to tell me.
When Cassie's powers were activated from her nearly dying underwater, that little 20 to 30 second scene was pretty good. I shouldn't even say pretty good. It's more like, for this movie, it's pretty good. For a regular Marvel movie, it's like, hey, that was interesting. But for this movie, it's pretty good. That's the sad part. All right, there's another part. So through the trailer, through you hearing about this, Teo, you know that Cassie like can see the future and stuff.
I can see the future.
And she can also change the future. Like the future isn't like definite.
Yeah, I know that from the trailers, but I also know that from the comic books.
Exactly. So another thing I like, this is very tiny. I'm telling you, the things I liked are very small.
Well, I mean, you just went over like 20 to 30 seconds that were pretty good for this movie. So I can imagine.
This next thing is even smaller than that. Believe me. This next thing is a little detail that someone added, and I thought it was good. I like this one point where Cassie is watching the movie Scrooge, like A Christmas Carol. She's watching Scrooge.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of like that. Like, I'm not always a fan of like doing the on the nose type stuff, but this one was pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that Scrooge was playing in the background of her apartment and stuff. But then they do something with that I don't like. So it's a positive and a negative. I wish they just kept it to her watching Scrooge, and a little bit of dialogue happens with Scrooge, and like that's good. It's like, ooh. Like,
did they do a thing where she's like, hey, that's like my life right now?
Basically, I wrote down the specific line.
Oh my God.
So she starts talking to the TV eventually, and she says to it, I hate to break it to you, Scrooge, but you can't change things. That's the literal line. So
yeah, that's a little too on the nose.
Yeah. I hate to break it to you, Scrooge, but you can't change things. So a little addition that I liked turned into something I didn't like. So, all right, next thing I like.
Go put poop in your diaper.
Exactly. Like I felt comfortable in my diaper. I was like, hey, this is a soft diaper. And then, oh, you dumped diarrhea in my diaper. I didn't do it. You did it. Why would you put diarrhea in my freshly cleaned diaper? That's what they did. All right. So another thing I liked. Okay, this is more. This one's a little bit more bigger. It's not entirely a small thing. So another thing I liked is you see in the trailer a train sequence.
Yeah.
There's the whole train sequence where she's seeing like the future, and Spider Guy is like snapping the girls' necks and stuff. Ooh. And she's seeing that like premonition type stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of like some of the brief train sequence where it's right before all the characters finally meet. It's right before they all meet each other, because it feels kind of like a Final Destination premonition moment where she's seeing all these things that are about to happen and then snap back in reality. Oop, there goes gravity, that sort of thing. Then she's able to fix it a little bit. But also something that was interesting, I wish they would have done this more, because this scene, when they did it, I was like, ooh, I kind of like that. The thing I like about it is like it's all over the place, like the future events Cassie is seeing. Like they're all over the place. What I mean by that is it's not linear chronological events she's seeing happening.
Oh,
Like
okay.
it's very confusing to her as to what the very next thing will happen in the future. Like
Oh.
like in terms of a premonition, like a Final Destination premonition, she could see like the middle event, but it happens at the beginning of the premonition, and then everything else is all scattered and stuff.
Okay.
I thought that was very interesting.
And she has to like piece together the order of events, basically.
Somewhat, but they only do it this one time to just kind of show like she can see the future, but it's all scattered and stuff. She can't really tell like what will be the beginning and what will be the end of a sequence,
Okay.
kind of. So I like that. I wish they had done it more though. That's my one issue. So in terms of big stuff I liked, I guess that's something. But I think they could have done it more. But yeah. The very last thing, we're already on the last thing I liked. So there's actually, everyone has trashed the dialogue, and believe me, I'm going to trash the dialogue as well. There's actually a piece of dialogue that I did like in this movie.
Oh.
That actually I didn't laugh, but I was like, oh, like that was clever. Like either Dakota
You shot a
Johnson thought
sharp
about
breath out
saying
of your
that.
nose.
Do what?
You shot a sharp breath out of your nose in amusement.
Yeah. Either Dakota Johnson thought about saying the line, or a one-day writer came in. I was like, hey, like, what about this? And they're like, okay, we like that. Now you're fired. We don't want to hear any more of that. Get that talk out of here. Or what it was probably like he gave the bit of dialogue, or she gave the bit of dialogue, and they're like, get out. You're fired. Get out right now. Pack your bags. Scram. It's like, I didn't even sign a contract yet. It's like, no, get out. You're not getting paid. You did nothing. Get out. And he goes. And then while they're in their little room, they're like, okay, let's use that one bit of dialogue. That was actually pretty good. Let's use that.
All right, well, you built it up.
Well, that's the thing, is I'm building it up. It's not even that great. But in Madam Web, it's good. So dealing with the train sequence. So there is a guy that gets on the train, and this is a part of like her little non-linear chronological premonition she has. There's a guy that gets on the train and he asks, is this going to Airmont? And Cassie replies, I hope not, because I guess she doesn't want to go to Airmont. So that leads to the guy getting off the train as he realizes, oh, it's the wrong train. That's not the dialogue I like. The thing I liked was later, as Cassie is like tensely running away with the three teenagers in the subway station, they get on another train to try to avoid the bad guy. And believe me, I'm going to talk about the name of the bad guy in a second. They get on another train to avoid the bad guy. And as they're quickly going through this train, we see that guy from before on this train. And he looks up and he says, am I on the right train? And Cassie quickly says, I don't know, man. And just keeps going. I don't know. The way it was delivered, the way it was done, I was like, okay, I like that. So the one bit of dialogue I thought, or humorous dialogue,
Yeah,
that I thought was kind of funny was that.
the one character interaction that redeems the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it turned that one bit turned this movie from an F to a B plus. No, but so that was all the things I liked in the movie. It's very minor things, but I mention all that to say those things I did like, to make it better, you can kind of keep those things. Those are things that can stay. Now,
Loud.
let's get into issues in the movie. Basically, things that need to be taken out. Get this out of this movie. So, the very first thing, you've probably already heard this before. The dialogue is very expository. It explains too much. We talked about this earlier, but specifically because this is going to follow basically the line of the movie from beginning to end. Like my issues of the movie will go from beginning to end. So this first note is it's very, very expository the first few minutes of the movie, where Cassie, which is Madam Web, her mom, she's pregnant in the jungle, she's studying spiders, and
That's
it's
the worst
so
place to be pregnant.
expository. Do what?
That's the worst place to be pregnant.
Oh yeah. But they do explain why she's there later in the movie, and it's like, okay, that I guess.
I thought you were gonna say they explained why she's pregnant, and I'm like, I thought you said this was PG-13. I'm not
They
ready
show
to
it,
explain
too.
to my 13-year-old why women get pregnant.
But yeah, it's very expository those first few minutes, and it's very expository about the spiders and their cellular structure and how it can give someone superhuman abilities. Like it's way too expository, like that first 5 minutes of the movie. As well as, I didn't put this as a bullet point, but Madam Web will ultimately probably become one of those cult films. I don't think it deserves that,
Probably not. No.
but the first 5 minutes, I'll say this: the first 5 minutes of the movie, when I watched that, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be like so bad, it's kind of good."
Yeah, it's an entertainingly bad one.
The first 5 minutes are. I'm going to
Okay.
say that the first 5 minutes are. The rest of the movie, no. I don't understand how it's going to have a cult status, but I know it will. The first 5 minutes, yes, like it's so bad it's good. And talking about that first 5 minutes, it's not just the writing, it's not just the story. There are several weird zoom ins, like in The Office or Parks and Recreation, how they zoom in on a character,
Yeah.
like when something's being said or whatever.
Yeah.
They
like
do that
it's
in this.
a docuseries.
Yeah, they do those type of weird zoom ins in this very tense scene in the rainforest. Or another example, this might be more representative of it in terms of Madam Web, is there's those cop shows on like ABC or CBS, like those like crappy ones, not NCIS. NCIS isn't bad. I'm trying to think of, I don't know, CSI, whatever. Well, I'm saying compared to the other cop shows,
Oh,
NCIS
yeah.
isn't bad. No. There's worse. Believe me, there are worse.
Oh yeah, there's a lot worse than NCIS, but there's also a lot better.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can't remember specific examples, but like, yeah, just turn on ABC, whatever cop show that is just like
Yeah, I was gonna
randomly
say,
happening.
turn on ABC and literally whatever's on.
Yeah.
ABC or CBS, or like it's mostly cop shows at this point.
But the reason I mentioned that is with those cop shows, like there's like weird zoom ins in tense moments on characters' faces during tense moments.
Yeah.
That's what it is in the first 5 minutes of this movie. There are these weird zoom ins that happen at the weirdest of times, like during tense scenes. The most noticeable being when the bad guy is about to kill Cassie's mom in the jungle. It's very weird. Like he has a gun. He's about to kill her, and they're doing these weird ABC cop zoom ins on their faces. It's like, this is like a $80+ million movie. What are you doing? Like,
And of
It's-
course, I'm sure the whole time with you mentioning the expository dialogue, the whole time as he's like about to shoot Cassie's mom, he's like, "This is a gun. It's
basically
it's a weapon that I'm going to use to kill you. And the way that it functions is when I pull this trigger." And
well,
like he
I
just
mean,
spends
wow.
20 minutes explaining the mechanics of a 9mm pistol.
like that is a joke, and yes, he's not saying specifically that, but while it's like a tense scene and he's holding a gun on her and stuff, they are having very like expository dialogue exchanges.
Oh my
So
god.
it's like, what is going on? So yeah, that's like the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's not great. It was one of those cases where it's like, oh, this could be so bad it's good. Another thing with the first 5 minutes. This I guess is more of a nitpick, but I mean, come on, Sony. There are spider people in the Amazon. That's not my issue. There are spider people in the Amazon that find and save Cassie as a baby before her mom dies. Because, spoiler alert, bad guy shoots mom. So the spider people find Cassie's mom before Cassie dies and saves Cassie, but the mom dies during childbirth. My issue is, why do these spider people in the Amazon speak English? Why? I know for us as dumb audience, but according to the story, why?
Because Sony doesn't trust the audience to be able to keep up with subtitles. I don't know. They didn't want a language coach on set. Like they didn't want to pay for one.
And that's the thing, is like they only say a few lines of dialogue. We can read a few lines of dialogue. We can read 15 seconds of dialogue.
Well, I think honestly, at that point, I think that reinforces my suggestion that they didn't want to pay for a language coach. They didn't want to pay someone for 15 seconds of dialogue for authenticity.
It was just so lazy and so like cost cutting.
Yeah.
Like, so
they speak the universal language, English.
All right, so now getting out of that first 5 minutes, basically you have that first 5 minutes, which was in 1973, and now we fast forward into 2003. And believe me, I'm going to talk about the 2003 aspect in a second. But
it's incredible that like as you're going, every point you bring up branches off into new points, like a web.
It's perfect. Yes.
And also like new points that you're going to cover in the future. So it's like you're giving a premonition along this web of just bad movie.
Yes. All right. So the
your
very
review
next
was very
thing,
thematically appropriate.
Exactly. That's perfect. Yeah, I do need to turn this into an actual paper. Have it published through like an accredited like magazine or something.
Make a video essay.
Yeah. Oh,
put it up on the channel.
So long. I might do that. I'll think about it. If I did that, I'd have to script it out some. But yeah, I'd be down with that. But so we're now in 2003. Focusing on this part, an obvious critique with the movie is some of the dialogue. People have talked about it. We've already been talking about it. One bit that I was not a fan of is that Cassie is at her apartment. And keep in mind, Cassie is an orphan. Dad is not in the picture. Mom died in the Amazon rainforest, blah, blah, blah.
While she was studying spiders.
So Cassie's at her apartment, and she opens her window for a stray cat to come in and drink some milk.
Which you shouldn't give cats milk.
Yeah.
So that's another sin.
I might be just thinking that. Maybe she did water. I got a feeling it was milk, though. Knowing this movie is probably milk. I'm not going to go rewatch the movie just to see if it was milk.
Was it milk or water?
So,
also, which superhero do they think this is? This isn't Catwoman.
Yeah, exactly.
She should have been taking in a stray spider and feeding it milk.
Well, so she opens the window, the stray cat comes in and starts drinking the milk, and Cassie says to the cat, "Us strays need to stick together." I don't like that dialogue.
No, that's
I don't like it at all. I do ultimately understand it is a dialogue that will it's foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing dialogue because spoiler alert, we'll get to it later, but the very end of the movie, all three of the teenagers are basically orphans
spider.
slash strays.
I was gonna say
So-
the spider women are the stray spiders that she lets in and feeds milk to.
So us strays need to stick together. That should be the log line.
It
that's on
should.
the poster.
I know it probably didn't, but it should have ended with her giving them all a bowl of milk and them like lapping it up like cats.
So yeah, I didn't like that bit of dialogue. I do understand it's foreshadowing, but it's very bad. Another issue I have is right before Cassie falls into the water. So cars flipped over on a bridge. This is right before she falls into the water and her powers are activated. The trailer shows this part. She's helping get someone out of a flipped over car that is partially hanging off of a bridge. With Cassie inside the car, her and her EMT partner pull the guy out of the car. My issue is, how did they not look at the situation with the car partially hanging off and not realize that there would be weight displacement with getting the person out of the car? It was very stupid. It was very, very stupid. And Cassie kind of deserved to die for that stupidity. And
My
Ben
next big
Parker,
issue, Cassie doesn't die in the water.
based on how stupid of a decision that was, she kind of deserved to die for that. And Ben Parker, the other EMT, deserved to carry the burden of his stupidity the rest of his life. So that was my note on that part.
Getting shot by a mugger like 10 years later probably would have come as a relief to him. Like, oh, I finally don't have to live with the embarrassment of letting my partner freaking drown.
I could have just like, as we were running up, realized, hey, half of the car is hanging off, and this guy's weight is clearly like it's in the back half.
Yeah.
So if we move him, weight displacement. But no, they didn't think of that. Cassie is lucky she died or she lived.
Yeah.
She
And
lived.
as Ben is bleeding out on the street, Peter's like, Uncle Ben, what are you talking about? Peter, don't let your partner fall off a bridge because you failed to comprehend weight displacement. What? With great power comes great responsibility. And my power is understanding weight displacement and leverage. Okay? I guess.
But yeah, I know that's a
my friend
minor
Cassie.
thing.
She'll understand. Who is that? Oh, you're dead. He's dead. I guess I'll cry and try to get revenge. I don't know. the most lackluster, indecisive Spider-Man universe.
Yeah.
Born from one moment of stupidity between Ben and Cassie. She totally shouldn't have survived that.
But yeah, like there's multiple things like that in the movie. Oh, there's one that not a lot of people, I haven't seen anyone talk about, and it's the biggest hang up. Again, I am still looking at the future just like this movie is, with all the dialogue and everything. We'll get to that in a second though. But yeah, the whole weight displacement thing on the bridge was so stupid. Like it's so idiotic. Another issue that I have with this, you've probably heard this one, but I don't think anyone's really said the amount of time this was. An issue I have is that the Spider Women stuff is all a dream of the future.
Uh-huh.
It's all a dream of the future. And there's only 2 of these future dreams / visions. Altogether, they make up at most, it's likely less than this, at most 3 minutes of the movie.
Dang.
Any of the Spider Women stuff.
So they like used all of the Spider-Woman footage
For the trailer. Yes.
Wow.
Very, very deceptive marketing. I don't know. Hey, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know. Seems a bit off.
That seems a bit
Uh,
fishy to me.
It does. So, and I'm saying at most 3 minutes. I got a feeling it's maybe 2 minutes.
Ugh.
But yeah. So that's another issue. Another issue with the movie is including Peter Parker's mom in the birth of Peter Parker in this movie. I have an issue with that because the main reason is we see Peter Parker's mom, we see her at a baby shower,
Yeah.
and she describes there's multiple things. They're always just nudging. They're like elbowing you with like, hey, this is Peter Parker without saying it's Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So we see Peter's Parker mom at a baby shower, and she
Peter's
describes
Parker mom, yeah.
she describes her baby in her womb as leaping around in there.
Oh,
That's an odd way to phrase it.
it is.
Clearly, we know why as the
Yes.
viewer, but it's very odd.
Yeah, 'cause
Also,
he becomes the legendary jumping man.
yeah, it becomes leapfrog.
Leapfrog, yeah, the famous superhero, Leapfrog.
Yeah. Also, with the baby shower, they play a guessing game where everyone tries to guess the name of what the baby will be. And right as the mom is about to reveal the name of the baby, a balloon pops and it interrupts her because the movie wants to dance around this fact that this is Peter Parker without actually saying the name.
Is there something in Sony and Marvel's deal where they're not? No, that can't be the case, because I was gonna say Vulture directly references Spider-Man in
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, is there something in Sony and Marvel's like deal where they can't directly reference Peter Parker or Spider-Man? But that can't be the case.
Well, I'm trying to think. So with the Vulture thing, does he say Spider-Man or does
Yeah,
he
he
include
says
Peter
like
Parker in that?
the universes are doing stuff, and it must have something to do with Spider-Man. Like he says that.
He
in a
says
thing.
Spider-Man, but does he say Peter Parker?
He doesn't say Peter Parker, but
Is there some weird rule in this contract where you can say Spider-Man, but you can't say Peter Parker?
I don't know. There might be. I guess, yeah. Well, I mean, but then again, they can use Peter in the animated Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like movie contracts can be really weird when it comes to like existing IP.
Yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, ultimately don't have Peter Parker and his mom in this movie. But if you're doing that, I'm tired of all the dancing around stuff. But ultimately, don't have them in there. They don't need to be in this. You're only having it because it's like, hey, reference.
Yeah,
Hey,
we understand that the reason you're seeing this movie hinges entirely upon your investment in a different character.
As well as like we're hoping those people that still watch those, like, here's 50 things you missed in this movie, little Easter eggs. We're hoping those people are still watching this, but the Easter eggs we're given are not entirely Easter eggs. They're in your face. But we're hoping those people are watching this movie.
Yeah, kid, I'll give you your Easter eggs. Go in the fridge and open the carton.
That is a good way to describe any quote-unquote Easter egg in Madam Web.
And you'll have to paint them
It's
yourself.
that. Like, that is legit. That's the best way to describe it. Hold on. I have to mark that because that makes it's a great analogy of all the quote-unquote Easter eggs of this movie. Okay. So, continuing with issues in the movie. Another EMT dies from a car accident. And this is the one time in the movie where I think Dakota Johnson's acting could have been directed better, or it could have just been better. Because the guy dies from like a car accident, like his ambulance, he's driving off. She saw a premonition of this before. Ambulance is driving off and another car sideswipes it and it kills the EMT driver. She sees all this happen and she is saddened by it, and it's so. It's not the best like sad scene. But what I really thought was goofy is she even dramatically drops her head at the end into her lap when she realizes she can't save him. She just because she was like doing compressions, like she was trying to do CPR and bring him back and stuff. When she realizes she can't save him, it's the dramatic drop of her head into her lap. I don't know. I'm not saying it's as bad as this, but it kind of reminded me of the whole Dark Knight Rises Talia death. Like,
where she may as well have gone her blood.
Yeah, she like might. She should have. Yeah, she should have. Yeah. The Talia death should have been like verbally have the last breath.
Yeah. Just have Gordon be like, "Whoa," and then Batman be like, "Yeah, they don't show you that in the movies." Gordon slowly plugs his nose.
So, continuing with issues of this movie, a part that was bad but was funny is when on the train you hear I'm now remembering the scene. You hear the train conductor doing his usual speaking stuff. Like he's like, all right, and next stop is downtown New York, and we'll be going here, and be sure to get off. And suddenly you hear him getting the crap beat out of him while on mic. I know they didn't mean for it to be that way, but I thought it was so funny. He's just like, all right, next stop will be downtown New York, and be sure to.
Are you sure I shouldn't see this movie in the theater? Because that sounds like a joke you and I would write.
Yes, but the thing is it's 2 hours long. There's maybe 15 to 20 minutes that I think is actual good bad. The rest of the movie is kind of boring if you're not doing an academic dive that I did. But I completely forgot that till I saw the bullet point. It's so stupid. And they meant it to be serious. It genuinely
sounds like a joke that we would write.
Yeah. But yeah, man. I hope someone just clips that and puts it on YouTube, because I don't want to go rewatch it just for that scene, but I do want to rewatch that scene.
You rent the movie on Amazon Prime when it's out in like a week, and like
I'm just going to fast forward.
You use your entire rental just to keep watching and rewinding that one clip.
But yeah, like that was the part that was bad. They didn't mean for it to be funny. They wanted it to be serious, to where it's like, oh crap, like bad guy on trains. Or
it was supposed to be scary.
Yeah, but it was so funny. So
why would you start with the conductor?
I don't know. Yeah, I just thought about that. Yeah, I don't even know if he stops I think he stops the train. I don't know. I don't remember. Like, they get off the train. Yeah, I don't. Okay, maybe he did it to like. Oh my gosh! Now I'm trying to think why he did that. Yeah, like, wouldn't you want the train to like keep going with them on it? That way, you're the only people you gotta worry about is the people on the train, rather than cops in the subway. Oh my gosh. It makes no sense. I have no idea. I have no idea why he started with the conductor. Oh gosh. All right, so next thing. Let's see. Oh, this is continuing with the subway station. All right. So big issue I have is in the subway station and on the train. Apparently, no one saw the spider guy, aka bad guy, aka what they call him, ceiling guy. They call him ceiling guy a lot. Ceiling guy, they call, and I know they're trying to do it like jokingly, but it's not great of a joke. But like the writers are trying to do it jokingly, but at least 5 or 6 times that's how they refer to him, as ceiling guy. because they first see him, he's climbing on the subway ceiling.
Oh, okay.
But so yeah, no one sees him other than the three teenagers and Cassie. The reason I bring this up is like, yes, people do see him, like cops see him, they get beat up and stuff and get knocked out or killed. I think most of them get killed. But it's a subway station. There were other people in there. My issue is our main characters mention this later. They mention like, oh, no one else saw him. Like no one else saw Ceiling Guy. It makes no sense that no one in the subway saw him. Unless he has invisibility powers, which he doesn't. He doesn't have invisibility powers.
I was gonna say, I think the first cloaking Spider-Man was Miles in the comic books, and because I know which Spider from the comics this character is, because it's it was a part of all like the deeper marketing that was for the comic nerds, basically, where they were announcing all character names. So like I know that this guy didn't have cloaking powers in the comics. I know they're free to change it as they want, but
yeah.
But like from what I heard in the Weekly Planet review is they didn't even give him webs. They didn't even give him a grappling hook.
No, yeah.
Or a rope.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's one tiny thing I liked. This is a less than 5-second scene. Is he's running on the side of a skyscraper, like with his feet, and I thought that looked kind of cool.
like Alex Mercer in Prototype.
I'm trying to think if it's like that. I think kind of like that, but I thought that was kind of cool. But again, it's cool in terms of Madam Web. I would expect that from a Marvel Spider-Man movie, like an MCU Spider-Man movie. But yeah, you mentioning that just made me think of that. So I guess that's another minor thing I like. That thing that was 2 or 3 seconds long. So yeah, big issue with like no one seeing this guy. It literally in the subway station was just Cassie and these 3 teenage girls. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah. With it being 2003, if they really wanted to make it like period accurate, that was the early 2000s was the era of like basically like internet cryptids starting to spread, right? So so like if they want to make it period accurate, it would have been better if like Cassie and the girls weren't the only ones who saw him, but the only other people who saw him are like posting really fuzzy pictures to the internet, like it's the Ceiling Guy.
Oh yeah, it's
because like nowadays everybody would have had a video on their phone of it, but
back then,
like back then it would have been like I took a picture with my digital camera and uploaded it to an obscure web page or a blog or something.
Or even then, even if no one did take a picture, it just makes no sense that because an APB, and I'll get into the APB later. I've got a big issue with that. An APB goes out like shortly after they escape, like less than an hour after they escape. And it's like Cassie's driving along, this little funny moment they wrote. It's not funny, but they try to make it funny. Where they're driving and it's like, oh, three teenagers are missing. They've been abducted. Or 3 teenagers are missing. And Cassie's like, yes, finally, like someone's ready to help. And the APB is like, they've been abducted by a young lady. Looks like she's in her 30s. Be on the lookout. And she's like, hey, what the heck? So that also shows that like all the reports and everything don't mention Spider Guy at all. And they talk about that. They're like, what? Like, no one saw Spider Guy? It was just us? Which makes no sense at all. So I just realized the 2003 thing. I'm going to go ahead and get into the 2003 thing. I messed up and didn't put it earlier in my notes. It's actually at the bottom of my notes, but I want to get into this because you mentioned the 2003 thing. It has me thinking hard about it now. So I mentioned before, this movie takes place in 2003. My issue isn't that it takes place in 2003. It could take place in 2003. I'm fine with that. My issue is how hard that they are trying to show it's 2003. They are trying way too hard. And specifically in the first 30 minutes. Here are all the things you will see in the first 30 minutes. We see a blockbuster. We see characters drinking Code Red Mountain Dew, which came out 2 years before. We see several times a Pepsi in camera. It's very weird how much it's in camera.
They had like a Pepsi sponsorship, I think.
No, I get that. Like I get the behind the scenes reason why, but if you're just looking at it as a piece of art, it's very weird how much it's in camera. So we see several times a Pepsi in camera with the 2003 Pepsi can logo and look. We see a character talking about how she feels bad for Martha Stewart, as Martha Stewart was dealing with legal trouble at the time and would eventually be sentenced to prison. Yeah. There's also other things like Britney Spears' Toxic playing and someone saying, this track is going to be huge. And also someone mentioning that they're going home and watching American Idol. Almost all of what I just said is in the first 30 minutes.
I remember hearing, again, this goes back to the Weekly Planet review. Apparently someone's playing a PSP in the movie at some point as well. Which
I'm guessing, I heard that in their review. I don't remember seeing that, but I'm sure it's probably there.
Yeah, if it is there, that's inaccurate. PSP didn't even come out in Japan until 2004.
Yeah. But I write that off. I know they did it jokingly, but I wrote it off as like, when they said it jokingly, like, oh yeah, somehow like that kid's dad or mom. Yeah. But yeah, so a lot of this is just way too obvious in terms like, hey, 2003, see, 2003. But that's not my main issue with it. My issue is that most of these, they're done in the first 30 minutes, and then the rest of the movie doesn't have all of these obvious 2003 establishing things.
Huh.
I'm not for all the obvious showings of the time period, but if you're going to do it, it needs to be throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it.
Like, this is going to be a little weird, but with Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel, in my opinion, does not represent the 90s super well. But one thing Captain Marvel has over Madam Web in its period setting is it at least sprinkles its 90s references throughout the movie instead of getting them all done right away. Like, she crash lands in a blockbuster. Like, blockbusters were, 90s and early 2000s things. So, like, she crash lands in a blockbuster. Gwen Stefani music is playing in one of her final battles. A Nirvana song is that she wouldn't have heard at that point yet. Is playing in her mind palace when she's having her final laser fight with the Supreme Intelligence. Like it's there's at least like they at least sprinkle 90s stuff into it like throughout, even though in my opinion it is kind of poorly done in that movie because again it doesn't represent the 90s well. Like Captain Marvel is just kind of set in a generic past, like a generic 30 years ago. Where there are only a few hallmarks of the 90s here and there. I think it's because not a lot of people really know what was unique about the 90s. Like I think honestly, and the early 2000s as well. Like that 2-decade stretch right there was I think kind of just filled with like these time periods are almost transitional. Like they don't have their own identity, and that's kind of become their identity.
Yeah, because the big things you can see in terms of what makes the 90s or the 2000s is through music. But outside of music, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, because like even fashion, but like in the early 2000s, at least from what I'm aware, fashion was pretty like toned down. Like 80s was like the excess height of fashion. 90s was on like the incline downward from that. And by the time you get to the 2000s, it's like, sure, there was some like noticeable fashion trends, but like no definitive like things that everybody did. You know what I mean? Other than like frosted
Yeah.
tips for boys.
Yeah. But yeah, with Madam Web, like if you're going to do all the obvious stuff of showing the time period, do it throughout. Like you said, sprinkle it throughout, which they didn't. It was mostly the first 30 minutes. Overall, though, I don't like these obvious things. I don't like when movies do these obvious things.
Yeah.
They should have just kept it simple, like a lot of movies do, and have things like the vehicles be the indicators of the time. Like vehicles that you see driving on the street, that's usually a good indicator of the time. Do that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more for those subtle showings of the time rather than like, hey, here's the Pepsi can and it's got the 2003 logo. Hey, here's a Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster? And Blockbuster's actually, that's one of the first scenes we see Cassie in. It's her like driving real quick in the EMT in the ambulance, and they're driving past a Blockbuster. Yeah. So, all right, let me scroll back up here.
It kind of makes me think of. Did you watch the new season of What If?
I haven't yet.
There's a scene in the Christmas episode that they did where Darcy is directly referencing the similarities to Die Hard, but she can't remember which movie the situation is similar to. So she's like, "Oh, this is just like Con Air." No, wait, no, that's not the right one. That's and then like she names a couple other movies. She's like, "Hang on, I'm walking down my mental Blockbuster aisle." It's like, oh, that's kind of funny to hear Blockbuster still referenced in something. Like outside of it being a period setter.
Yeah, you can do little stuff like that. That's fine. But Madam Web, yeah, I'm not a fan of how they're showing the 2003 era. It can be 2003, but don't have it so obvious, and don't have all that obvious stuff in the first 30 minutes of the movie if it's not going to be in the rest of it. All right, let me see. Oh, another issue with the movie is when they talk about the bad guy later.
Yeah.
They really, really dance around not saying Spider-Man. Yes, it's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man doesn't exist at this point, but they're constantly dancing around not saying Spider-Man.
Oof.
The character says it was a spider person. Like they do a pause.
Yeah.
For us audience members.
Yeah.
It's and they do stuff like that throughout the movie. It's not just that one time.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah. Another thing, after Cassie escapes the subway with the teenagers, it is very wild that she just leaves these random teenagers she just met them, just randomly leaves them in the woods by themselves for pretty much the entire day. Like almost the whole day. She's expecting them to just stay in the woods.
She gets back, they're wearing like loincloths. They've learned how to hunt bears.
Oh gosh.
They've formed a primitive matriarchal society.
But yeah, it's just the middle of the woods. She just dumps them off, and like I'd be okay if it was like an hour or a couple hours, or heck, even a few hours. But it is like at least from like noon to, I don't know, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. when she finally gets back. But I'll get into that in a little bit.
That's like 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah, that's pretty long for these teenagers. They are teenage girls, and you just met them. And it is the middle of the woods.
And it's 2003.
Right. And it's 2003. Animals in the woods were wilder in 2003.
Yeah. Bears weren't doing cocaine yet.
Yeah. So this next part is dumb, but I kind of like it for how dumb it is.
Okay.
So this is after she ditches the teenagers in the woods. Cassie is in her apartment, and she's thinking about the spider guy. and she's thinking about how he climbed on the walls of the subway station. She then says to herself, she says this out loud, how could you know you could climb a wall if you never tried? She then tries to climb the wall of her, tries to climb the wall in her apartment, and
What?
she pathetically fails. Like, out loud, she said, how could you know you could climb a wall if you never tried? She then tries inside of her apartment, and like, it's not like she gets hurt or anything. It's just a pathetic attempt and a pathetic fail.
Like we saw in like 2000, what was it, 2002, we saw how you find out you can climb walls without trying. Stuff stuck to Spider-Man. He had to learn how to turn it off. He had to learn how not to climb walls.
But yeah, she pathetically fails at that. She then turns and tells her stray cat, let's not ever tell anyone about this. So
The cat's like,
that
you
is a
got it,
scene
boss.
in the movie. The cat does a salute. It's like, all right, gotcha.
Gotcha.
All right.
I am sworn to secrecy. Cuts his wrist. We shall make a blood pact.
But yeah, that's another instance where it's a good bad thing, because I do want you to see that scene eventually, as well as the train conductor.
I really want to see that train conductor scene.
Yeah. All right, so this next one is a nitpick, but the teenage girls, they eventually decide to leave the woods. My issue is they had a campfire going on in the background,
Yeah.
and they just decide to up and leave it without even putting out the fire. My issue with this is based on the time. This is 2003. This
Yeah.
is one of the peak eras of Smokey the Bear.
Yeah.
Did they not learn anything from the commercials and having Smokey the Bear mascots come into their schools?
That would have been a perfect opportunity for an early 2000s reference somewhere other than the first 30 minutes of the movie.
I would have hated it, but yeah, you have to have those references. That's a reference. It's like, oh yeah, Smokey the Bear was big in 2003.
Yeah, have
Like,
one of the
one of
girls
them-
be like, oh, Smokey says only you can prevent wildfires. And
Yeah,
get,
exactly.
pick
You
dirt
have like
on the fire.
Yeah, you have one or two of the girls start walking off, and yeah, you have the one girl be like, hey, like, what the heck? Only you can prevent wildfires, and they come back and stomp out the fire, like put dirt on the fire, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's a nitpick, but it's there. The nitpick is, hey, why didn't you put your wildfire out? The addition to the nitpick is this is a big era for Smokey the Bear. All right, so we're getting into a thing that like was a big issue with me. This is ultimately just people not paying attention in filming and the story, really.
Yeah.
It's very minor, but for me it's big. So I should mention before this next one, I mentioned before there is an APB out that 3 teenage girls were kidnapped by a woman. The woman is Cassie. Well, later on, the teenage girls, they make it out of the woods to eat at a diner. There's a guy in the diner that has a newspaper about the 3 missing girls and them being abducted. My issue is this is all the same day that the abduction happened. Cassie and the girls being at the train station was maybe, like, this is where she quote unquote abducts them, was maybe right before lunchtime. The girls being in the diner is about 7 p.m.
Yeah,
This isn't how the newspaper. Yeah, this isn't how the newspaper cycle works at all.
Yeah.
That paper wouldn't be out till at the earliest the following morning.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
What was the paper?
It did show. It said like 3 abducted girls.
No.
It was something like that.
What was the publication?
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, it probably was like
The Daily Bugle.
Daily Bugle or something. Yeah. That's one of those things that those stupid YouTube channels will have is like, oh, here's an Easter egg.
Yeah, but that's one of those ones where if you're doing a Spider-Man thing and you have a newspaper in it, it has to be the Bugle.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the Bugle, that is something to be upset about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if it is the Daily Bugle, this is all a bullcrap fantasy where somehow they got the paper out that day, which is impossible. That's not how the newspaper cycle works. Like at the earliest, it would have been the following morning because journalists, they have to hear about the event. Then they have to type up the story. They have to have the editor okay it. Then it has to go through printing and packaging. Then it has to go through distribution all over the local area. And most places usually receive the papers between 5 and 6 a.m. And somehow all of this happens
in 8 hours.
In a 7-hour span, which that's not how it works. So I mention all this in that it would be impossible for this guy to have this abducted teenage girl's newspaper at this diner. So that was a big gripe with me. I know it's very minor, but it's like, this isn't how this works.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, they were thinking with 2020's brain where information travels instantly.
Here's how you could still do that same thing, because the reason he has that is so he sees the girls in the diner and he calls the cops. That's the reason they do that. You know how you do that to where it makes sense? I'm not a fan of doing this at all, of him seeing the girls and calling the cops. How you do that to where it makes sense is the radio is playing. It's the local news station or whatever. And they're talking about this on the radio. That makes sense. They would do that. That would be playing 7 or 8 hours after the event.
Yeah, you just hear over the radio, 3 teenage girls who look like attractive 20-somethings have been abducted by Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, then the creepy guy at the diner's like, well, they're about to be abducted again. I can tell you that much.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, the guy looked a little creepy. But no, he called the cops. He seemed like a decent guy. All right.
You see, I called you guys in this time.
It's not me this time, I swear.
All right, it was just the one time, I promise.
All right, another issue I have is that Cassie keeps wanting to dump these teenagers on their parents, even after Spider Guy has tried to kill them twice, once at the train station and once at the diner. Spider Guy comes to the diner eventually. It gets hectic. And Cassie, she's clearly seen what Spider Guy is capable of.
Yeah,
He's killed a lot of people in front of them. He's killed multiple cops in front of them, let alone all the spider abilities and stuff he can do. It's not like these kids' parents would be able to help any more than Cassie can. And clearly Cassie can help more than the average person. But yet she's still wanting to dump the teenagers on their parents. Like...
Yeah, she's got a major case of not my problem syndrome.
It's like beyond unrealistic of that case. Like, everyone has that.
Yeah.
But even the worst person ever would not have that. They understand, like, oh yeah, like there's nothing that can be done. I can't take them to their parents. Like,
well, obviously Cassandra Webb is worse than the worst person. She's the worstest person. She's like, look, girls, I know I have psychic powers and I can see the future and I'm probably the only person capable of saving you. But, like, don't your parents have, like, magic parent powers or something to protect you? I grew up without mine. I wouldn't know.
Doesn't your parents have, like, magic shotgun in their house? It's like, but we saw people with shotguns and pistols try to take this guy out and it didn't work. It's like, well, maybe they have magic ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Magic
I don't know.
Killing shotguns.
And if they don't, y'all should go get them. That's not my problem. You should find out where magic shotguns are.
And if all else fails, kick him in the nuts.
It's effective on everyone, on every guy it should be. All right, so
Every time.
another thing is this is a very short bullet point, but it carries throughout a lot of the movie, at least the last half of the movie. Is for a good chunk of this movie, Cassie drives a stolen, front end messed up taxi cab a lot.
Yeah.
She drives it a lot and no one finds it ever. No one ever finds this taxi cab.
Was the taxi a part of the APB? I feel like it should have been.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, she drove away. Yeah, that was the vehicle she stole. It was a taxi cab. So that's what I'm saying is from when she kidnapped them to right before the big battle with bad guy at the end, she's driving taxi cab that has front end messed up. Like it's clearly identifiable.
And it's an extremely identifiable taxi cab.
Yeah. But no one ever finds it. So which also is very dumb because I'm now thinking like, sure, let's say cops don't find it. That doesn't make sense, but let's say cops don't find it. I don't get how bad guy doesn't ever find it like in someone's driveway because bad guy like he has like secret NSA technology where he can see all the traffic cameras and stuff. This is like before it was known to the public and sort of stuff like that, like in real life. So he has all this technology to where he can see where people are through traffic cameras and just cameras everywhere. How does he not find them through the taxi cab? What he keeps doing, he has like an assistant, he has like an oracle back at his base. He keeps telling oracle to like find their faces. Like he has a system that finds the faces of these girls and that's how I find them. Why not tell oracle, hey, put in the system to find this giant taxi cab with the front end messed up? That's easier to identify than a face, you idiot. Oh, gosh. All right. Let me see. All right. Oh, my gosh. This movie got my blood boiling. All right. So,
5 years.
so I mentioned the constant like pulling from Spider-Man or dancing around Spider-Man stuff. They try to pull from Spider-Man with saying Spider-Man stuff again. And an Amazon spider person, Cassie goes back to the Amazon to figure stuff out.
That seems
And
like
Amazon,
an appropriate use of the time.
oh yeah. This took days, and during these days, the teenagers are staying at Ben Parker's house. But we'll get into that in a second. But so she finds Amazon Spider Guy, and Amazon Spider Guy says to Cassie, "When you take on the responsibility, great power will come." Cassie, because keep in mind, we're dum-dums in the theater that's like, oh, he said something somewhat similar to what I know. Cassie then stares at the man for way too long by him saying this. Because that's clearly the pause for us to be like, he kind of said the thing.
Yeah.
He kind of said it.
And then he gets shot by a mugger there in the Amazon. Right, Cassie. And she's like, no, I should have stopped this.
No, Amazon Spider Guy, no.
And then he starts talking to her about weight displacement and how she shouldn't have survived that fall. She's like, what?
Oh, gosh. All right. Another issue, going back to the teenagers being at Ben Parker's house. So another issue comes when the teenagers, they're being kept safe and hidden at Ben Parker's house. And Peter Parker's mom, her water breaks. And Ben has to take her to the hospital. My issue is the teenagers go with them. Why?
Huh.
Why must the teenagers go with them? Because they would have been safe staying at Ben's house.
Yeah.
By this point in the movie, they've been at this house for a long time. Like at least an entire day, definitely more than a whole day. But they've been at Ben's house for at least an entire day and nothing bad has happened to them. Like you would think, like bad spider guy hasn't showed up yet. Maybe we're safe here and he can't track us here since this is the longest period of time where he hasn't busted into a place that we're in and tried to kill us.
Yeah.
But no, let's go with them to the hospital.
Okay, I have a quick question that I need to ask.
Yeah.
So you say Peter's mom is in the movie, but not his dad.
Not his dad, no.
So I have to ask, is this version of Peter's mom Ben's sister or sister-in-law?
I'm trying to remember. I think sister.
Okay.
Sister.
So are they
That
going
makes
with
more
like
sense.
a single mom angle on?
I don't know. Now thinking about it, I don't know if they ever mentioned Peter's dad. If they did, it was like a one sentence thing saying he was dead or something. Because I don't remember them ever talking about Peter's dad.
No. Peter's parents are supposed to die together.
Yeah, I if they do mention him, it's one sentence and I just don't remember the sentence.
Because that's okay. This is extremely nitpicky because I know, like I've said before, they're allowed to make whatever changes they want, whatever. But like, but whatever. I'm gonna let me be upset about this. We're all allowed to be hypocrites every once in a while as a treat.
Yeah.
It's like traditionally the family structure is Ben and Richard are brothers.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, Peter would have a different last name than Ben.
Yeah.
Mary is Ben's sister-in-law.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like the reason I'm saying, because I don't know if I'm sure they do, I just don't remember. The reason I'm saying it's Ben's sister is because that makes more sense in the movie. Because if it's sister-in-law, it feels kind of weird.
That he's the one driving her to the hospital. I mean, unless
Well,
she
not just that he's the one driving her to the hospital, but he's so involved in her life.
Yeah.
Where we don't see Peter's dad.
Yeah. And May isn't in the movie, is she?
No, Ben's not married. Or is he married? No, he's not married.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. But yeah, like what I don't even remember the thing I'd mentioned.
The
teenagers. Yeah, like them going.
They left a clearly safe
Yeah.
location to go to the hospital with Ben.
And obviously things go bad on the drive there because they don't know it. I get it. But the guy has the NSA technology. He can see street cameras and stuff and find their faces. But yeah, like the big issue is this is the longest we've been safe. He hasn't came in and crashed through. He normally does that after like a few hours. So maybe we should stay, but they don't. So yeah. I have two more issues with this movie. There's only two more. There's a bunch of issues, but with all the ones I've been talking about, these are more like central things rather than like movie shot bad or movie writing bad.
Yeah.
So I'm also not a fan of how the bad guy dies.
I heard about this.
Cassie basically circumstantially leads him to his death. And I actually like the knowing the future thing and playing that to your advantage to leading bad guy to his death. I actually kind of like that. I just think it could have been done a lot better. It feels like too anticlimactic kind of how they did it. And then yeah, you probably saw the Pepsi pea falls on him and kills him.
Dude.
Yeah. Part of their deal with Pepsi was like, hey, we're going to incorporate it into the plot even. Like your sign is in the plot. Your sign kills bad guy.
Yeah, Pepsi.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah, the next Madam Web 2 will have Pepsi Man in it. Pepsi Man,
Pepsi
the old
Man.
video game guy. Yeah. He'll be there. All right.
That would I'm gonna be honest with you, that would be unironically awesome.
I'd watch it because at that point they're leaning into like, oh yeah, we know we're making crap.
Yeah, we know this is the stupidest thing in the world and we're running with it.
Yeah, at this point, do not try with this.
Yeah.
Make crap. So my last comment about the negatives is that the movie is really just a CPR instruction video. I'm going to explain this. So we see Cassie give CPR multiple times in the first act. Multiple times. I even mentioned one of them where that EMT driver, he dies and she's trying to give CPR to him, but it doesn't come back. We also see other instances of her giving CPR. Then, when she's hiding out with the teenage girls at a motel, Cassie shows the girls how to give CPR with a lot of instruction. She gives them a lot of instruction. And then that scene lasts too long, like way too long, because we take turns seeing each individual character giving CPR to a pillow.
Oh, you're kidding.
One gives CPR to a pillow, and then they're like, okay, I'm getting tired. All right, let's switch up. Let's swap out. All right, you're giving CPR to a pillow. Okay, I'm getting tired. Let's swap.
Did they give you and your brother certificates when you walked out of the theater?
They should have. Like, that was CPR training right there. Like, I should have. Yeah, I should have got my little certificate I can put in my wallet.
Good till February 2025.
Yeah. So I mentioned that, and then at the end of the movie, the teenage girls use the CPR training they learned from Cassie to take turns giving CPR to Cassie to save her life. That's why I say this movie is secretly just a really long, high production CPR instruction video that just so happens to have a plot that leads to CPR being given. Yeah, I think this was whoever has the organization that does the CPR instruction stuff. I think they were one of the producers in this movie. I think they were a big producer in this movie.
Hey, it is valuable knowledge, so at least you're getting something useful out of it.
It is. It's just really weird that I had to pay $11 to get my CPR instruction and have all this random bullcrap plot around it. But yeah. So those are all the issues with the movie. Now, how you make it better? First, you change all that stuff. All the stuff that I said was bad, change it or take it out.
Yeah. Do the opposite of it.
Yeah.
Story wise, for the train conductor scene.
Yes, keep that in. I really, dang it, that and her pathetically failing to climb up her wall, the inside of her apartment wall. I want those clips. I need to see those clips now. So, how to make it better, change all that stuff. Big way to make the story better, at least. You can still call it Madam Web if you want, but no Madam Web origin. Don't have Madam Web origin in this movie.
Oh.
I think it should have followed one of or all of the teenage girls. Okay. I should mention this how to make it better thing. I'm not saying this is going to be a 70, 80, 90% on Rotten Tomato. I'm not saying that. Currently on Rotten Tomato, it's like 10% or something.
Yeah.
My idea, because it's not just a writing issue, there's also cinematography issues and different stuff. It's not just one man thing. But if everyone follows this writing idea, I think this could have been at least a 50% Rotten Tomato movie. It's not good. It's better than 10% though.
Yeah, it's I mean that's still not a passing grade technically, but yeah,
It's not a passing grade, but hey, it did better than we all expected. We all expected what it has right now.
Yeah.
So, no Madam Web origin. It should have followed one of or all of the teenage girls. And then, much like Kyle Reese in Terminator or the T-800 in Terminator 2, maybe 15 to 20 minutes into the movie when the teenage girl or girls is running away from Spider Guy that's trying to kill them, Madam Web shows up to rescue them and hinder Spider Guy briefly by her already somewhat having her future abilities and her utilizing them to escape with the girls.
Yeah, that would have been a lot better.
That's our introduction to Madam Web, and that's also to bypass, I'll get into it in a second, but to bypass almost an hour of just boringness at the beginning. So they escape and everything. And you can still have Cassie, Madam Web, you can still have her not able to fully use her powers yet, or not fully be able to control them. But she knew something was happening, so she showed up and saved them at the subway station right here. Our main characters should be the teenage girls, though. And then also Cassie, once she shows up, similar to a Terminator movie where, hey, our main character is John Connor, like Terminator 2.
Yeah.
And then it's also Arnold 15 to 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and he is the titular Terminator for that one. And
yeah.
But like you said, he doesn't show up until you're already like 20 minutes in.
Yeah. As well as like Cassie's not as skilled as like an Arnold Terminator.
Yeah.
Like she's still learning her powers, but she had a brief moment where like she had it together to where she knew like, oh crap, like something's going down, and she saved the day, sort of thing.
Honestly, the way you're talking about it, like if we're going with the Terminator 1 analogy,
Kyle Reese.
The title of the movie could change to, since technically that first one's named after the villain of the movie. The title of the movie could change.
Ceiling Guy.
I was gonna say his actual name, Ezekiel Sims, but
yeah. But yeah, so my big thing is like do that. All backstory and origin stuff with Cassie that we have in the actual Madam Web movie that we have.
Give it.
That takes over 30 minutes of the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
We throw that out.
Yeah.
So we can actually have a movie that somewhat starts off interesting.
And you can sweep it under the rug by having one of the Spider Girls ask, like, so how did you get your powers anyway? And have Cassie offhandedly remark, like, weight displacement and all that.
Yeah. It was a stupid thing of mine. I shouldn't even be here. Like the Spider Guy even told me I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I agree with him. Like,
I agree. That was very stupid of me. And also, part of that first 45 minutes of the actual Madam Web movie that we have is showing what the bad guy is up to and his backstory and why he's doing what he's doing.
Oh my God.
Throw all of that out as well. Throw that out. The first time we see this random killer spider guy or anything about him is when our main characters, the teenagers, encounter him for the first time on a subway station. And he's trying to randomly kill them. That way, like, we have investment. We feel like we're kind of the teenagers. Like, oh crap, like this is their first time seeing them and it's our first time seeing them as well. Like, I feel more connected rather than, hey, I have all this information that they don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, like do that. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, Cassie shows up and happens to get them out of there. And then later on,
lean a little harder into like the Jason Voorhees-ness of him, like the slasher aspects. That sounds like it would
exactly.
be
Exactly.
like start off with him as like a fully unknown thing.
Yeah.
Way more fun. Start the movie with the train conductor scene.
Yeah. All right, next stop, we'll be pulling into Station A. Following that, we'll be pulling into... Oh, Jesus!
Ow!
Oh, God!
Call the police! The police!
All right, so yeah, then later on, you can find out why the guy is trying to kill these puny teenagers now.
Yeah.
Is because he knows that they will one day kill him. You find that out later on in the movie, and it's kind of a revelation to you.
Yeah.
To where it's like, oh, like these, because they come off as puny teenagers. Like similar to a Terminator scenario where it's like, oh, little Sarah Connor, like she's going to give birth to this guy who is like he starts this rebellion.
Yeah.
Like you have these puny teenagers, and it's like, oh, like he's trying to kill them because these puny teenagers are going to be the ones that kill him. You're not changing a whole lot of the plot of Madam Web as it is now. You're just tweaking things to make it better and more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that does sound like it would play out a lot better.
Again, I'm not saying it's going to be a 70, 80, 90% Rotten Tomatoes movie. I can tell you it's going to be more than 10 or 15%.
Yeah. And honestly, the way I've heard it described, like his visions of the future where like they beat him up for a while.
Yeah.
Knowing what those three girls look like in their costumes, that doesn't sound like a bad thing to me.
Yeah, and at that point it's supposedly like 10 years in the future, or it doesn't, I don't know if it ever says how far in the future it is, but it seems like it's about 10 years in the future to where it's like, oh, okay, they're like 27.
Yeah. They're all, and like all the actresses who play those characters are adults.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know. That kind of sounds like it's a fun way to spend the night.
But then they throw you off of a building.
A night you'll never forget. No, if we could cut the thrown off of a building special and just go for the having the crap kicked out of me by three hot women in superhero costumes, then I am down.
But yeah, all the stuff I mentioned, the issues that I mentioned, change those or take those out. The story beat, changing that, how I just talked about. I think you could have had a decent movie. I'm not saying amazing movie, but you could have had something to where people are like, hey, like, or 10, 20 years down the road, you have people saying like, oh, like, yeah, I kind of forgot that movie. Let's put it in. I remember it kind of being good.
Yeah.
You at least have that.
Yeah. The way I hear a lot of these like Sony movie like plots described, because I haven't seen anything in the Spum universe since Venom, like the first Venom.
Mm-hmm.
So like the way I hear them described is Sony is still very much approaching superhero movies the way that they were approached like in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like it's very like, it's always like very weird, it always feels very disconnected from its source material.
Oh yeah.
And we've said that, you know, it's okay to make changes from source material in the past, but like if the thing that you're making doesn't even feel like it's properly capturing the spirit of the source material, then something's wrong there.
Yeah.
And like a lot of those early 2000s superhero movies did kind of feel like that. Like as much as I like the original X-Men movie, it's not the best representation of its source.
Yeah, that's true.
And like Daredevil, the Ben Affleck Daredevil, just like whenever I hear like how these movies play out, like the plots of it makes me think of Daredevil specifically.
Yeah. And just no lessons have been learned.
Yeah, exactly. Like
History, it's usually one of those things where history repeats itself after like centuries, usually.
yeah,
But this is like a company where history just does not exist. And it's like,
yeah,
this is repeating every couple of years.
yeah. It's like it's 2003 forever for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sony's still riding high off that first Sam Raimi Spider-Man. That just came out last year. Sure,
But
we
yeah,
had to pull the ad where Spider-Man webs up the helicopter between the towers,
Yeah.
but that was the only hiccup. And that was a marketing issue. People love Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's my Madam Web breakdown, both on paper and mentally.
All right, we're going to be pulling up to our next stop here on line A. Why?
Yeah, because you hear at least like a couple seconds of him getting the crap beat out of him. It's not like it cuts off. Like it's not like, and we're going to pull into stop A, and like it doesn't cut off. You hear some punches. You hear some struggle of the conductor.
It just sounds like the funniest thing in the world to me. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
Yeah, overall, I know it's going to become one of those cult following movies like Rocky Horror Picture Show or The Room. I don't think it deserves that. I don't think it's good, like so bad it's good.
I was gonna say, like, The Room deserves its status, right? The Room deserves what it has. Because the thing is, here's the thing about The Room, okay? All right? Tommy Wiseau was at least trying.
Yeah. You see a man like genuinely trying to make a movie.
Yeah, he tried so hard. And, like, sure, it failed spectacularly. People do not watch that movie for any of the reasons he wanted them to. But still, like, you can admire that he put effort in.
Yeah.
Sony is not doing that.
No. Yeah, no effort's being put in. And it shows. And again, I don't think it should be one of these these cult movies because there's few instances where it is so bad it's good. There's the instance where it's the first 5 minutes of Cassie's mom being in the Amazon rainforest. I'd say yes, that is so bad it's good. The instance where she pathetically tries to crawl on the inside of her apartment wall. The instance of train conductor getting the crap beat out of. Those are like, you compile those and it's like, this is very funny, but I would not watch a 2-hour movie just to get to those points.
Yeah, to get like at the most, 7 minutes of comedy gold?
Yeah. And you have those little things here and there, those hiccups, like those mess ups that I mentioned, like with the newspaper in the diner.
Yeah.
Like different stuff like that. You have those, all the Pepsi product stuff. You have all those, but that's not a part of a so bad it's good movie scenario.
Based on what you've explained to me, all of the worthwhile bits in the movie are first 5 minutes, train conductor. Is this the right train? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's but that's also
Crawling
the the reason the I don't know man part is good is like because of the movie it's attached to.
Oh yeah. The wall crawling attempt and getting smashed by a Pepsi sign.
Yeah. And in total, all of that is at max 8 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and then I would probably watch the scenes where the Spider Women are beating up the bad guy in the future, just so I can imagine myself in his place.
To get some good views, you're gonna have to pause some because they move quick with those.
Well, yeah, they're spider people. Super speed is actually a part of their moveset, so
yes,
like in the comic, it's extremely limited, but it is considered super speed in the comic books.
But for the guys that went to the movie to ooh and ah at them in their suits, you're not even going to really be able to take mental photos. It's too fast.
Wow. Can't even take any B-pegs, huh?
Nope.
Dang. You know, that's a How I Met Your Mother reference I never thought I would just whip out in casual conversation.
But yeah, all that's to say, don't go see this movie. Wait till someone makes a compilation of all the stuff I just said.
All the funniest bits of Madam Web.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say today we'll hold off on doing a commercial pitch. We might do that next episode.
Yeah.
I'd say we can swing into Teo's continue into his manga study.
Yes, the manga study. We shall resume it. This is the second milestone. So this is chapters 6 through 10 of the 20 different Shonen Jump manga series that I'm reading. I'm reciting that just for listeners so that they know what's going on in case this is their first encounter with the manga study. So yeah, for listeners who might be new to it, I have taken it upon myself because there's something wrong with me to read 20 different manga series published in Shonen Jump magazine from their beginnings across multiple eras. I'm not going to bother going over the list of specific mangas since I'll be saying their names as we go. So like you're going to get the full list. It's just going to be one at a time.
Yeah.
So here we go. And for this part, I pick my phone up and I walk around my house while I'm recording.
Nice.
It helps me concentrate.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Like when I need to be a silly guy, I sit down because it like sitting down shuts my brain down enough to make me weird. But if I need to concentrate and be academic and like coherent, then I get up and walk because walking helps me think.
I gotcha.
So, all right, here we go. First one. Dragon Ball chapters 6 through 10. Oh, right. And for those who are curious, the reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to track similarities and influences across different series to see like really how strongly connected and related all of them are, because they do have very blatant similarities and there's a lot of obvious influence across the generations of Shonen Jump manga. So I'm doing this to like study how each of them pace themselves out over time and like what their goals are going in, because a lot of those really classic ones like Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho did not start as like the big high drama sci-fi fantasy action epics that we know them as.
Right.
They started as like comedies or like episodic like slice of life sorts of things and eventually mutated into something more action oriented. And a lot of the stuff nowadays that takes influence from them actually takes influence from like later periods of those manga and starts with something more action oriented. So I'm just like, a lot of this is to like see how that development takes place and how it's paced out across different series.
Right.
And like which ones, you know, share different lineages, like what has more influence over what, that sort of thing. So that Yeah, and it's also just general thoughts too. Like a lot of these notes, especially early on, are just going to be general thoughts.
Okay, true.
So it's not going to be till later milestones, I think, that I start making more concrete connections from series to series. But anyway, so yeah, first one, Dragon Ball, chapters 6 through 10. The series takes a pretty big leap in quality with these chapters. It doesn't bother waiting for Goku and Bulma's dynamic to grow stale before expanding the core cast. Oolong, Yamcha, and Puar are introduced in quick succession over the course of these chapters, and Yamcha's bumbling bandit routine is milked hard for some of the best laughs in the series so far. Those are my initial thoughts. This is the stretch of chapters that includes that one bit where Goku knocks Yamcha up into the border of the panel at the top of the page.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love that moment so much. It's so funny. And it's such a subtle little fourth wall break.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're out in a wasteland. They're out in a desert. There's nothing above them, but Goku, like, ping-pongs them off the top of the panel.
Yeah.
And nobody addresses it. Nobody comments on it. It's just something that happens. So I find it very funny, and it's very subtle, and it goes so quickly. But yeah. Oh, and also for listeners, at like anytime I finish one of these like notes that I'm reading, Brandon is allowed to ask whatever questions he wants.
Yes.
In case he needs more like clarity or wants to know if I have any deeper thoughts on anything. All right. Saint Seiya, chapters 6 through 10. Character models remain blocky with odd facial proportions. Action remains bland and flatly choreographed, and plot remains basic and thin, and dialogue remains clunky and heavily expository. Where have I heard that before? Saint Seiya remains the weakest of the classic Jump series so far. I don't have much else to say.
So not the best first 10 chapters.
No, definitely not. And unfortunately, it's the longest first 10 chapters, averaging between 30 and 40 pages per.
Oh, gosh. And you said all that dialogue and stuff.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It is a slog. Saint Seiya takes me the longest to read. Alrighty. Next up. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, chapters 6 through 10. This one continues to be one of the stronger entries of Jump's classic era. The action is detailed and creatively choreographed, and the tension gets consistently ratcheted up with every chapter. Things are coming to a head, narratively speaking, and I anticipate the first major confrontation between Jonathan and Dio.
Nice.
Oh, and I read the next 5 chapters already for Milestone 3 for JoJo, and boy, does that confrontation pay off.
That's good.
But I'll get into that next time. All right, next up, Yu Yu Hakusho, chapters 6 through 10. This one is still my favorite of Jump's classic era. It expands very mildly on the established world building of the early chapters in favor of keeping a lighter, more episodic structure with conflicts and character moments that aren't centered around action or spectacle. Togashi's focus on the humanity of his characters and their very real and relatable motivations is what elevates this series above its brothers in a way that not many shonen titles were doing at the time or have done since.
Dang. What was I'm trying to remember. What was the first publication date of Yu Yu Hakusho?
Yu Yu Hakusho. Oh geez. I don't have it recorded. Yeah. Yeah. But like for Jump's classic era, like Yu Yu Hakusho and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I have nothing but praise for both of those two. Like I can't find any glaring flaws in either of them.
Yeah.
Which is really something for me to say after having gone on the record in the past on other podcasts talking about how much of a fan I am not for JoJo.
Right.
But that's based on multiple tries at the anime adaptation.
Let's see. Okay, so December 3rd, 1990. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's like tail end of Jump's classic era. Like as far as like qualifying for start dates.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, One Piece, chapters 6 through 10. The conclusion to the first arc was heartfelt and established the importance of Luffy and Zoro's friendship with Kobe very well, setting Kobe up as a major player for later in the series. The second arc swiftly introduces Nami and quite intelligently focuses on her as a second lead, making her decisions and behavior into the driving force of the arc's narrative. This way of introducing a new character is a genius method of quickly endearing the readers as someone that the author plans to keep around for a long time. And Oda establishes Nami's character arc for the rest of the East Blue saga, as well as her initial motivations, very clearly within her first 3 chapters.
Nice.
So yeah, like Oda puts a lot of time and effort into making sure that you care about Nami in like the first 3 chapters of her being in the manga.
In what chapter did you say she's introduced?
She's introduced overall in chapter, I want to say 8.
Okay.
All right. Hunter x Hunter, chapters 6 through 10. This series continues Togashi's hot streak. Let me start that over. This series continues Togashi's hot streak. Spending nearly 5 full chapters on the Hunter exam's first phase establishes the degree of challenge that the protagonists are in for, not just for the rest of the exam, but also for the rest of the series. It also continues to characterize the heroes and supporting cast effectively, delving deeper into their motivations and personalities, a solid stretch of manga chapters.
Nice.
But yeah, like that one, like one of the secondary leads of the series, Leorio, he, just to go into more depth, he starts the series off as like just kind of seeming like he's money hungry, and the only reason he's going for the Hunter exam is so that he can like get rich being a hunter. And you learn over these 5 chapters through a conversation he has with another one of the secondary leads, Kurapika, with whom he has like a very like deep, like respectful rivalry over the course of the series. Leorio, the reason he's so obsessed with money, the reason that he like has built his entire life philosophy on the foundation that money is the most important thing in the world, is because he had a friend who died when he was a child because he couldn't afford the medical bills.
Okay.
So Leorio, like through like his formative years, determined that money has power over everything, including life and death, which is true. And that's why he wants as much of it as he can get his hands on, so that he basically, because he wants to be a doctor, he's studying to be a medical professional. He wants to have the security to be able to give people medical treatment for free and tell them they owe him nothing.
Okay.
But in order to do that, he has to become a doctor, and to afford to become a doctor, he needs to become a hunter.
I gotcha.
So it's this, long string of like, if I become a hunter, I can make enough money to go to medical school. And then when I'm done with medical school, I can be a doctor who works for free and helps people who otherwise couldn't afford medical treatment.
Right.
It's an extremely noble goal wrapped up in a character who initially seems completely selfish and irredeemable.
Right.
So it's a fantastic turnaround, and it happens before chapter 10.
Oh, dang.
Like it happens in like chapter, I want to say 6 or 7 is when you find that out about him. So like it's like a really fast turnaround on this character. But I think Togashi also understood that he needed to do something to make Leorio likable in those early chapters if he wanted to keep him around for a while. So that like fans hadn't already made up their minds too harshly about him before it would be relevant. Togashi is just a fantastic storyteller. Like Yoshihiro Togashi, I think, is my favorite mangaka.
Okay.
Like Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho, neither of which I think are my personal favorite manga altogether, but I hold both of those series in really high regard, and Togashi in really high regard as a creator, because he thinks about every single detail, like every single detail. It's incredible. The way his brain works and the way he tells stories is just fantastic. Anyway, I got to move on. Otherwise, I'll be talking about just his stuff all night. All right. Naruto, chapters 6 through 10. Spending multiple chapters on Team 7's first exercise against Kakashi was a smart and detailed way to properly establish the difficulties that lie ahead for the heroes. This is going to sound a little similar to my Hunter x Hunter one. If Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke struggled so horrendously during a simple test, surely the real missions will be that much harder and more dangerous. The exercise also sets up Team 7's dynamic and properly lays out their first arc of the relationships between the three young protagonists. Chapters 9 and 10 have already gone over how far in over their heads Team 7 is for the coming conflict. I feel like I worded that sentence confusingly. And I'm excited to return and relive this opening storyline once again. Because I've read this before. I've watched this in the anime before. I've seen the first arc of Naruto play out across multiple media a few times. So like it's a storyline I'm very familiar with. But this is my first time digging into it like with the intention of being critical.
Right.
So it's fun to go at it with more of like a critical lens and study it properly.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Claymore, chapters 6 through 10. The episodic nature of the first 5 chapters really helped the second stretch in its execution. The slow burn nature of the story was aided by all the world building that had been established early on, leaving me without questions on public opinion concerning Claymores or why the town these chapters are set in would be an obstacle to Claire. The climactic chapters at the end of this stretch come as a welcome change of pace, transitioning quickly from slow burn mystery to a fast-paced life or death battle. The action continues Claymore's trend of interesting choreography. Overall, Claymore is shaping up to be a standout series.
Dang.
Yeah, because Claymore is basically like The Witcher, but with girls.
Right.
And it's really good. Like it knows when to slow down and when to speed up. Like the creator of Claymore, I haven't memorized their name yet, but the creator of Claymore, at least with those first 10 chapters, just a master of pacing.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I get the sense that once I'm done with this first like proper arc of Claymore, it'll feel like I've read a book.
Dang. That's pretty good.
Because like it just kind of flows in that way.
Yeah.
It like the Witcher comparisons I think actually go really deep with that, because like early on the episodic nature of the chapters kind of starts, it feels a little bit like those short stories that the Witcher started with. And then like the first actual arc kind of feels like it's transitioning into the novels.
Okay.
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Claymore's good. I like it so far. I'll have more to say, in the future, obviously.
I gotcha.
All right. Bleach, chapters 6 through 10. The series expands in meaningful ways, elaborating on the world building from the first 5 chapters. That's something that I'm going to mention a lot, by the way, is that like first 5 chapters are often spent on world building in these things.
Yeah.
Elaborating on the world building from the first 5 chapters to introduce and flesh out 2 important supporting cast members who will play a significant role in the future of the series. The introduction of longer arcs serves as an early departure from the episodic nature of the early chapters, but it is a much needed change of pace in order to make the Hollows seem like a more threatening presence. The art continues to be amazing to look at, properly selling the impact of every major moment in the story. Those are the notes on Bleach.
Nice.
Alrighty. All right, next up, Toriko, chapters 6 through 10. This one had a strong start, but it really picks up in this stretch of chapters. The world and characters are engaging, and the focus on food makes for an interesting angle on what could otherwise have been a bland monster hunting series. Food is an often neglected aspect of world building in fantasy stories, and this series' hyper-focus on the subject makes for an enticing read. So those are the only notes I've written down, but like overall, I also wanted to say like Toriko's monster designs are also like really interesting. Because like obviously they would have to be. The whole thing is like hunting monsters to eat them, right?
Yeah.
So so you have to have like interesting looking monsters.
Yeah.
And the creator of Toriko is just good at like intimidating monster design as well as like less intimidating monster design. Like monsters that seem docile and monsters that seem like brutal. Like he can do both.
I gotcha.
All right, next up.
Is there ever a monster where you look at it and you're like, man, I could see that monster before being prepared and cooked, tasting delicious?
Yes, there are a couple of those. Yeah, it's. And then there are others where, like Toriko mentions, like, you don't want to eat this one. And like you look at it and you're like, yeah, I get that. Because there are some monsters that don't make good food.
I gotcha.
Kind of like animals in the real world. There are some animals that you just don't want to eat because they're not very good.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Tokyo Ghoul, chapters 6 through 10. This is one I know you're already familiar with. You read Tokyo Ghoul all the way through, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was one of the ones I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Pardon me. All right, Tokyo Ghoul, chapters 6 through 10. I admire this series for really taking its time to introduce the setting and characters. 10 chapters in, and it has only just introduced the earliest hints of conflict. It focuses on characterization and dwells heavily on the struggle that comes with surviving as a ghoul. That isn't to say that the series can't bring the action when it needs to. The brief bursts of excitement and violence are appropriately appealing and eerie in equal measure. Now that the horror is established and seeds of conflict planted, I hope to see Tokyo Ghoul dig into and expand on its narrative themes soon.
Yeah, Tokyo Ghoul, there's a cycle. I mean, like all manga have cycle, but the cycle that I saw with Tokyo Ghoul, I don't know when it starts kicking in. It could be from the very beginning, where you'll get 10 to 20 chapters of characterization / just learning more about the world, with a little action here and there. So 10 to 20 chapters of that, and then you get like 10 to 30 chapters of battle.
Oh wow!
Whatever it may be. Like big
they go
battle.
for 30 chapter battles
as it goes on. Yes.
Because I gotta be honest with you, I was not expecting that from Tokyo Ghoul.
Those instances, it's not a 1v1 battle. It's usually like ghouls versus I forgot the other organization.
That's actually even cooler than just being one-on-one fights.
Yeah. There are one-on-one fights, but it gets big.
Wow, that I wasn't expecting I was expecting Tokyo Ghoul to focus more on the gothic horror.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to turn into a full action manga later, so that's something to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a cycle with that.
Yeah, like an arc structure. Every long running manga has an arc structure.
Yeah.
All right, next up, One Punch Man, chapters 6 through 10. The series wisely slows its pacing and extends average chapter length in this stretch to give its mildly expanded cast room to breathe. These chapters also give Murata's art the chance to really shine in the action scenes. The introduction of Genos as a main character drastically alters and escalates the stakes of the series, since Saitama will clearly never be in any real danger. These chapters really step it up after one solidly introduced his world.
Nice.
Yeah, the chapters 6 through 10 of One Punch Man do a real good job of like getting into the world outside Saitama.
Yeah.
Even if it is only through Genos. Like Genos is the only regular character who gets introduced in these chapters. Like One Punch Man really takes it slow with the actual world it's building. It really wants you to like know who these characters are and what motivates them before it moves on. All right. Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, chapters 6 through 10. The series takes a bit of a hit to its pacing in this stretch. It has a lot of world building to catch up on, with these being the introductory chapters to the series' actual main setting, the Totsuki Institute. The exposition is largely dialogue driven, but it does at least try to mitigate this drawback by incorporating demonstrations concurrently with the exposition. Chapter 10 ends with a bit of a cliffhanger as the true stakes of the series really start to set in. Just like a good dish, Food Wars is taking the time to let its world and characters cook. I can't believe I wrote that.
Very, very solid.
Solid like my dookie. I've actually been having very loose poops today. Anyway, any questions on Food Wars?
No, I think that was a pretty good analysis.
All right, cool. All right, My Hero Academia, chapters 6 through 10. These chapters go a long way to displaying Izuku's strength as a character. His willingness to push himself to extreme lengths and beyond his own limits is displayed perfectly here and functions as a distillation of the series' core themes about pushing through adversity. Now that the protagonist is firmly established and his central rivalry with Bakugo is set, it's time for the series to explore Izuku's relationships with his classmates with a bit more depth.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was that one again? I'm sorry.
That's My Hero Academia.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
Alrighty. Next up, Black Clover, chapters 6 through 10. This series takes a noticeable leap forward in terms of quality. The art gets better with every chapter, the action choreography remains top-notch, and the pace is brisker than any other series on the list. While its older brother, My Hero Academia, is still holding its focus on a small group of characters and hasn't even hinted at the central conflict of the series, Black Clover has already completed its first combat arc with actual antagonists, all while fleshing out some of the supporting cast in more depth. Really solid stuff this time around. Black Clover is like sprinting in terms of its pace.
Yeah.
Like that series does not slow down. Even its slow moments, like between fights, between arcs, are still going fast.
I gotcha.
Like Black Clover knows what it is, knows what it wants to do, and its main concern is getting there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Which
Come on,
I
don't
can
cancel us,
appreciate, with as many long series as I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
Alrighty. But all right, next up. Hang on, I need to take a sip of something real quick. Delicious Sam's Cola.
You gotta hold it up. You gotta make sure it's in frame of your cartoon character.
Yeah, I've been drinking a lot more generic sodas lately.
At the end of this episode, one of us is going to die by a Sam's Cola sign.
Ooh, I hope it's not me. All right. Next up, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, chapters 6 through 10. There are some minor but noticeable improvements toward the back half of these chapters. There is a greater sense of visual depth as the shading improves, and the pace quickens by a good deal after Tanjiro encounters his first truly threatening demon opponent. He is already off on his first mission as of chapter 10. Not much else to report. The series is keeping things pretty steady. Time will tell if that's a good thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, the first time I liked it, which I think he does the rest in peace thing to that hand demon.
Yeah,
but the part that I still remember, it's a subtle thing, but whenever he comes back, whenever the guy who trained him gives him that hug, I really like that moment.
Yeah, it's
because the guy was not expecting that at all. And
no, he thought he was going to die like the rest of the students did.
Yeah, exactly. He thought it was going to be like the other two students. And it was a subtle
11. It was 11 students. There were just two that helped Tanjiro train.
Yeah. But it was a subtle good moment because they, from what I remember, they don't like say anything. It's not like, oh, you didn't die like the rest of them. It's just simply Tanjiro came up and the guy gave him a big hug.
You knew there was a demon in there with a vendetta against you? I mean...
It's a subtle little moment. There's also another subtle moment where, like, it's weird. That guy, slight spoiler alert, but if you've seen the show, I'm sure it's the same way.
Yeah.
You're not going to see him again.
Ever?
I don't think ever. You're gonna hear about him.
Yeah.
From a character, but I think that's the last time you see him, at least up to what I read, like chapter 100 or whatever.
Yeah,
But
and I haven't seen him again in the anime as far as I've seen. Again, I've only really made it to like the first episode of season 3.
yeah, but with that, he is one of my favorite characters.
Mr.
Uh,
Urokodaki.
Yeah, because of just the brief time you have with him at the beginning, and then
Yeah.
something that happens later on with the Hashira and a letter that he sends. I really like it.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Next one. Dr. Stone, chapters 6 through 10. This stretch incorporates a decent amount of science into its run, but it must prioritize the narrative in order to sell the urgency of the situation. The pace continues on a good track, only hinting at characters outside the established cast this time. Senku and Tsukasa's respect for each other makes for a refreshing take on the rival-nemesis dynamic that has always been so prevalent in shonen manga. Their relationship gives strong Magneto and Xavier vibes.
Okay.
Yeah, like the first major antagonist for Dr. Stone, Tsukasa, he and Senku, the main character, have this really interesting like respect for each other because just because of like the way the two of them operate, and like they're both the smartest guys in the new world. But the thing is, Tsukasa has an advantage over Senku by being physically impressive as well, which
Right.
Senku needs his friend Taiju to do the heavy lifting for him when that stuff comes around. And the thing is, Taiju is kind of stupid, so he needs Senku to do the thinking. Whereas Tsukasa has the brain and the body in one form.
Okay.
Which is what makes him threatening to Taiju and Senku, because it takes two of them to go up against him, but he only needs himself. But which also really reflects on like the themes of the series as well, that like Senku and Taiju like know how to rely on others because they've always had to rely on each other. They know how to work with other people. Tsukasa stands alone. He's never had anyone he could properly rely on, so he always had to be self-sufficient.
Okay.
And so like and that by itself also really represents like the dichotomy in their philosophies. Senku and Taiju are committed to reviving every person on the planet who is petrified, while Tsukasa wants to cull the older generations and only revive the young people so that he can teach his philosophy of leaving the earth unspoiled, which is an honorable goal, but he's going about it completely the wrong way.
Okay.
Because he's, killing people.
Yeah.
While they are helpless as statues. Yeah. And Senku and Taiju are of the opinion that like it doesn't matter like what they might end up doing after they're revived. Everyone who's been petrified needs to be revived because it's a living thing. Like Senku and Taiju are very committed to the life is precious just because it is alive sort of philosophy. They're very Batman-esque, like no killing whatsoever in their approach to things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it it's a very interesting dichotomy between the two central figures, Senku and Tsukasa. But yeah, it's it's interesting that just those first 10 chapters gave me that much to dig into. And of course I have, I'm all caught up on the anime so far, so I do know a lot of what happens after that. But it's still just very interesting. Like Senku and Tsukasa are two like I think they have one of the most interesting hero villain relationships in modern manga.
Okay. You said this was Dr. Stone?
Dr. Stone.
Okay.
Alrighty. Next up is Jujutsu Kaisen, chapters 2 through 6. Alright, so this stretch is the real opener for the series, and it leaves off on an extremely tense cliffhanger. The early chapters established the main trio and their dynamic, leaning hard on tropes borrowed from One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach to really expedite the need for lengthy character intros. It spends a great deal of time discussing the stakes of each battle and digging into one of its core thematic elements concerning the value of life right away. I get the sense that the next battle is meant to be a major tone setter, and I look forward to seeing it play out. Any questions on Jujutsu Kaisen?
No, none I can think of.
Alrighty. Then we're moving on. Moving right along. This one's going a lot faster than last time. Alrighty. Chainsaw Man, chapters 6 through 10. This series is elevated tremendously by its artwork. If the action wasn't so explosive and engaging, I seriously doubt it would have gained much traction or attention. It has a raw edge to it, but that also means that characters come across as generally unlikable with few redeeming qualities. It makes for some humorous situations and feeds into the themes of the perceived value of goals and motivations, but generally makes some of the characters a bit difficult to stomach at times. The rough line work makes the raw, visceral violence of every fight rip across the pages, with massive double splash spreads making up so much of the action that 5 chapters can go by in under 20 minutes once it gets rolling. Having the kanji onomatopoeia follow the line of action also helps sell the illusion of movement and speed, and it's something I don't think I've seen in any other manga so far. Overall, Chainsaw Man looks and feels great to read, but it feels more like Pizza Cutter Man to me because it's all edge and no point so far.
I gotcha. What in chapter 10, what has happened?
Chapter 10, Aki has just shown up and killed the Leech Devil.
I'm trying to think who the Leech Devil is.
She was the girlfriend of the Bat Devil, who Denji killed in the chapter previous because he swallowed Power and her cat.
Are they still not at the hotel or
They still haven't made it to the Eternity Hotel.
Okay. Wow, I didn't realize how far. Yeah, because I had mentioned last time you had talked about Chainsaw Man that like I remember the first chapter of Chainsaw Man and a decent bit of chapter 2, but everything from then to the demon in the building.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of that, I guess. Has he touched Power's boob yet?
No, she still
Okay.
hasn't
Holy
followed through
crap.
on that yet. Like
Yeah.
they
I
like
don't remember a lot.
Aki like just showed up with like Himeno and Kobeni and the other guy to get Denji and Power in the aftermath of the Bat and Leech Devil fight. He just showed up to get them, and like it ends with them being like taken off to get some rest.
Yeah, I don't remember any of this. I
Yeah,
think once
remember, for the anime, this whole like Bat and Leech Devil thing was like an episode.
Oh, okay.
Like because the thing is, so much of it is just the fight that they were able to take those 5 chapters and turn it into 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when you get to the building, the devil in the building, because I want to see like how many chapters am I just forgetting? Because I do remember everything from that building. From that building on, I remember everything. I remember it being pretty good, but everything you're saying, I am just drawing a blank at. That's wild.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Kaiju number 8, chapters 6 through 10. This series continues to be a pleasant surprise. It's a more optimistic answer to Chainsaw Man's dour and edgy approach to narrative themes revolving around ambition, perseverance, and the value of dreams, and it utilizes a similar premise to do so. Kafka and Ichikawa are bromance incarnate and provide a wonderful core dynamic for the series, and introducing the character of Shinomiya as a female rival for Kafka makes for an interesting departure from shonen norms. With the early seeds of conflict and tension planted through the revelation that there is a kaiju disguised as a human, as well as one of Kafka's superiors catching on to the nature of his kaiju powers, making for a double cliffhanger that promises to bear very interesting narrative fruit down the road.
Okay.
Kaiju number 8 has been like a fun, surprising little trip for me.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it has a really similar premise to Chainsaw Man, where like instead of devils, it's kaiju, but like the main character gets like the powers of the monsters he hunts. Like he can transform into a human-sized kaiju basically,
Right.
but he's like way stronger than any of the actual kaiju,
Right.
and he and his buddy are trying to keep it a secret, but like he ends up having to reveal it to like his girl rival character to save her life, and that hasn't like resolved yet, that part of it. But also like his superior, who has just agreed to let him join the ranks of like the government like kaiju hunters, only want, because like he failed the test technically.
Yeah.
But this superior guy wanted him to join so he could keep a close eye on him, because he knows there's something up with him. He just doesn't know what it is.
Right.
So like he's catching on to the fact that Kafka is the main character's name, by the way. He's catching on to the fact that Kafka has kaiju powers. He just doesn't know that that's what it is yet. Plus, there's also been like some dramatic irony introduced in that the manga has revealed there is a kaiju disguised as a human somewhere.
Okay.
And like it's kind of just left that to simmer.
Yeah.
As of chapter 10. So it's like kaiju number 8 is hitting the ground running, in my opinion.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember when I started this manga study, I think kaiju number 8 was up to 94 total chapters. But it takes a break once every 3-ish weeks or so. So it's only up to chapter 105 now.
Okay.
So like kaiju number 8, I think its pattern is it goes 3 weeks on, like 3 weeks publishing, and then 1 week off. So like there's 1 week a month to let, I guess, the manga team rest.
Yeah, I actually like that.
That's a much better pattern than the way that they were doing it that was killing Yoshihiro Togashi.
Yeah, that's revolutionary for manga.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to take 1 week off for the month. Or even if it's not taking off, it's like you're able to keep up essentially as you're going with it, drawing and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, like Togashi, like a long time ago, he came up with this kind of famous mathematical formula now to calculate how much free time a manga, like the average manga author has.
Yeah.
And he calculated at the time that a manga author gets an hour of free time a week.
Oh my gosh.
Like that's not including sleeping and eating.
Yeah. And if you don't love being a mangaka, that's horrible. Because I know there are a decent bit of them that love it, and like yes, it sucks the free time thing, but the reason they keep doing it is because they love it. But there's also others where like it's strictly a paycheck.
Yeah.
And like that's horrible for that case.
It feels like Jump finally realized, like, oh, we're killing Otovo. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. But like, I think they finally realized, like, oh man, we're killing all of our authors.
Yeah.
We should probably let them take a break every once in a while.
Yeah, for real.
Like, I have no idea how Oda has been doing this for a quarter of a century. On one series. Just one series. He is using up every single idea he's ever going to have on one thing.
Yeah.
Like, when One Piece ends, what the hell is that man going to do? Like, he can just retire. He can retire and never think again for the rest of his life in peace.
Yeah.
Which is the smart thing to do. Because, like I said, he is using every idea he is ever going to have on one series.
Yeah.
And, like, One Piece is like literally his first thing. He was 21 years old when that series started publishing.
Man, that's wild.
He's spent his entire adult life writing one comic book.
Mm.
So, like I said, like, what could he possibly do, like, creatively, once that series is done? He just needs to retire when One Piece ends.
Yeah. Ultimately, yeah.
Like,
do
just having that
everything you
one
want to,
massive thing to his name for the rest of eternity.
yeah, do everything you want to in One Piece, and then retire.
Yeah.
Don't start something new. If anything, definitely don't do a long running manga again.
Definitely not. Well, you see, the thing is,
if
I don't think
anything,
there's ever going to be another long one like One Piece.
no, and
From
I'm
anyone.
not even saying that long. What I mean is, like, don't do a 50 chapter or 100 chapter.
Yeah.
Like, don't even do that. I'd say, like, if you want to write stuff and you have ideas and stuff, just do like ultimately the opposite of One Piece, where it's like collection of shorts type stuff. Because a lot of mangas will do that. They'll have collection of shorts. And I'm sure he's got ideas here and there where he wasn't able to incorporate in One Piece.
Yeah.
Hey, make a little short right there.
And I think he did. He either did or is about to release a non-One Piece one-shot.
Okay.
I think it's called Monsters or something like that.
I got you. Yeah, I think that's the best way to go, because people can still enjoy that. The big issue if you did something 50 chapters, 100 chapters, or plus is the people that are going to try to constantly compare that in One Piece.
Yeah, and like because that exact issue has popped up with other manga authors like Hiro Mashima, for example. He did Rave Master, which was popular-ish, but I don't think it had a huge following. And then right after Rave Master, he did Fairy Tail, which got real big, even though okay, now everybody keep in mind, I have a Fairy Tail tattoo on my shoulder. Fairy Tail got real big, even though it's not very good. I love Fairy Tail anyway. Like I said, I have the Fairy Tail Guild tattoo on my right shoulder.
Yeah.
But I also am willing to recognize that it's not like top notch shonen. But yeah, like he did Fairy Tail, and then when Fairy Tail was done, he did something different with Eden Zero. But everything in Eden Zero was so similar to Fairy Tail. Everybody was like, "Oh, this is just Fairy Tail again," pretty much.
Yeah.
Like and this is something that's like a fun quirk of his. He reuses character concepts and names a lot too. Like in Fairy Tail, there's a little blue cat named Happy. And he's like one of the main characters of the series. He's like their little mascot character. And then in Eden Zero, there is a little blue cat android character named Happy, who, is effectively the same character. He's written to behave and speak pretty much exactly the same way. And like, I think in both the Japanese and the English dub, he's voiced by the same actresses. I know, like, I haven't seen the Japanese for Eden Zero. I have for Fairy Tail, but not for Eden Zero. But I've seen them both in English, and I know for certain Tia Ballard does Happy's voice in both.
Okay.
But yeah, so and like it's just the and he even like plays a unique support role in each series as well. In Fairy Tail, he is one of the only characters who can fly at will, because the only spell he's able to know is to a wing spell where he can grow wings on his back. So what Happy does is he grows wings on his back and then picks Natsu up and flies around with him, and that's how Natsu was able to fly, is through his little buddy.
You're right.
Whereas in Eden Zero, where Happy is a robot, he turns into a pair of pistols that the character Rebecca, I think is her name, uses.
Okay.
So like he plays a support role in both. It's just completely different in each, but But yeah, but still like Hiro Mashima has a tendency to invite comparisons between his series. Because on top of that, like in Eden Zero, you have a character who's like, I think her name is like the Scarlet Queen or Scarlet Empress or something like that. It's like that is literally just Urza from Fairy Tail. Like literally just Jalal from Fairy Tail is in Eden Zero. Rebecca looks almost exactly like Lucy. It's just her hair is a dirtier blonde. It's ridiculous, the similarities between Eden Zero and Fairy Tail. So like there is a point where like you can consider it like a personal style or a personal flourish, but then there's also a point where it's like that's just a lack of creativity.
Yeah.
So like like you do get that to that point where like an author has done one thing for so long where it's like, well, I guess my next thing is just going to be that other thing again.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, I think Eden Zero recently ended, like the manga did. But even before Eden Zero ended, Fairy Tail's sequel series started publishing, The 100 Years Quest. Okay. So he literally just went back to do Fairy Tail again.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I kind of appreciate that. I really wanted to know what 100 Years Quest looked like. Because that's a premise they introduced really early on in the series, but never like actually explore. So I heard that an anime adaptation of 100 Years Quest has been on the way for a couple of years. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Okay.
And who knows, maybe Hiro Mashima has finally learned how to follow through on narrative promises like character death, character relationships, anything to do with any kind of noticeable permanent change other than just adding a new character to the cast. Because yeah, new characters are fun, and I don't mind stories where nobody dies. I'm not one of those guys who's like, why doesn't anybody ever die? However, I'm not a fan of nobody dying in stories where there are multiple fake out deaths.
Yeah.
Like Fairy Tail abuses the hell out of fake out deaths. So yeah, it's yeah. So hopefully, I'm hoping 100 Years Quest is like a noticeable improvement for Fairy Tail as an overall story. Could be one of those things where the sequel redeems the original a little bit, but I don't know. We'll see. Sorry, I went off on that tangent.
No, you're good.
But yeah, like Oda, I feel like he really should probably just retire when One Piece is finished. He's using up every idea he has. I really don't think he could start a new story without just accidentally reusing something from One Piece.
Right.
Like he's One Piece is so big and it's been going on for so long that I don't think there's a way that he could make something new without replicating something he's already done.
Yeah.
Because he's using everything he has.
Yeah.
And that's a matter of him having a hard time telling himself no when he comes up with ideas. He's even gone on the record saying that like sometimes arcs will balloon out way more than he thought they would just because he can't say no to himself. He'll come up with a cool idea and want to incorporate it in the next arc.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's why One Piece is so long, is because Oda just can't stop putting more in. We've been doing this for like 2 hours and 40 minutes, not including the pauses for pizza roll making.
So first 10 chapters of One Piece, promising.
Oh yeah, first 10 chapters of One Piece are great. And like I said, I have very detailed knowledge of what happens in the future because
Right.
I'm more than 920 episodes into the anime.
Yeah.
Which took me 10 years to do, by the way, before anybody's like, whoa, dude, you just touch grass. It took me 10 years to do that. I've been doing a lot of other stuff. I touch grass all the time, and it itches, and I have to wash my hands after.
Was One Piece the last one?
What? No, oh no, I wasn't like Kaiju number 8 was the last one.
Or Kaiju number 8, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's done. I went through all 20.
Okay.
Yeah, it went a lot faster than last time. That's why we had time for that last little tangent at the end.
Yeah. I just forgot Kaiju number 8 was the last one.
Yeah.
I'll ask this question. I'll ask this question at the end of each one. Based on first 10 chapters, no other knowledge, like taking out any shows you watched or anything, stuff you know ahead of time.
Mhm.
First 10 chapters, which this is actually a little bit more fitting because we discussed by this point a manga is either canceled or not.
Yeah.
First 10 chapters, what are the top 3 for you?
Top 3 for me, first 10 chapters so far. Okay. No particular order again. Yu Yu Hakusho, Black Clover really picked up with this stretch, and probably still Tokyo Ghoul. I think Tokyo Ghoul was one of my picks last week. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's probably Yu Yu Hakusho, Tokyo Ghoul, and Black Clover.
Black Clover coming out of nowhere these last 5 chapters.
Yeah, like, oh god, it really is the art. I think for Black Clover, because it like all of a sudden, I think it was chapter 8. Just all of a sudden, I noticed how much better it looked than it started, and it started off looking good. Like Black Clover did not start like looking weird or blocky or like it started off looking great, but like by chapter 8, it still found room to improve on itself so much that like there was one specific panel, like in particular, where like Asta is winding up for an attack with his giant black sword, and like and like the way it's incorporated into the fight choreography too is very interesting because like it's so detailed, and it's like a close-up of his face with the sword behind his head. I think it's in chapter 8. I can't remember, but like Black Clover really stepped it up in this stretch of chapters, so I like it kind of came out from behind as far as like top 3 contendership.
Yeah. Pretty solid.
Unlike my Dookie. Like I said, I've been having loose poops today.
Maybe that'll be corrected. Maybe. But some things in life aren't always good or will be corrected. Yeah. Like Madam Web.
Oh yeah. But I can tell you a little bit of a sneak preview of next milestone. Based on how far I've read into milestone 3 so far, I'm thinking that JoJo might be a top 3 contender for next time.
Okay.
Chapters 11 through 15 of JoJo pick up pretty hard.
Okay.
Like it really starts kicking in those ones.
All right. So 2 hours, 44 minutes in, listener. We've discussed Madam Web. We've discussed Teo's manga study.
Yes.
Go follow Teo along with this. All you got to do is get the Shonen Jump app. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, no, and we're not sponsored before.
No.
We should probably preface with that. We're not sponsored. I just personally really think it's a good deal. It's like $3 a month.
Yeah, like even because I remember back when I did it, it was $1.99, and like that was insanely cheap. And then when I heard they're bumping it up $1, I was still like, okay, yeah, that's still no issue at all.
Yeah, because like au contraire, it's 100 issues a day. Which is the same as
Which
unlimited
no one-
issues, because who's going to read
I was
100
gonna
a day?
say, how are you reading 100 a day? It has to be like a manga that has no dialogue in it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's no word balloons or anything. You're just looking at pictures. And
Yeah.
somehow, even with that, you did 100 of those.
yeah. But yeah, just to compare it to American comic book apps real quick. I don't know what Comixology's pricing is like.
Comixology is basically dead.
That's what I've been hearing. Now for Marvel, if I'm remembering correctly, I think Marvel's around between $8 and $10 a month.
Yeah.
And DC is like $7 or $8 a month.
Yeah, if you're doing monthly, it's 7 or 8. And then occasionally they'll have like a good annual sale where you pay like $50 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Or like $40 or $50. I wound up doing that back like last May, and I used it for a couple weeks, and I have not used it at all since.
Yeah.
So I will be canceling that.
Yeah. But yeah, so like looking at the pricing models there for those two American ones, Shonen Jump, if you can read right to left, like if manga layout doesn't confuse you, then and like you're just looking for something like outside of the usual American comic book style of either superheroes or independent, because those are the two genres of comic book. The Shonen Jump app is, in my opinion, a really good deal.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I'm not a huge like classic shonen type person. I'm not a huge fan of those, but there are various stuff that like, even if it follows that line, it doesn't feel like a classic shonen, as well as there's just like some pretty good one shots in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's plenty of short stuff as well as the really long stuff. Like there's something for everybody on here.
Oh yeah.
Like if you want something like Bleach but doesn't go on for like 300 chapters, Burn the Witch is on there. If you want something like, you know, classic Dragon Ball or Dr. Slump, or it's just a classic Toriyama style thing, Sandland is on there.
Yeah.
If for some reason you want to read Samurai 7, that's on there too. That's from the creator of Naruto. It did not do well. That was his thing after Naruto that failed real fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you can check that out. You can also
Or was it
check
Samurai
out
8? I can't remember. I can't remember what number they used. It's Samurai something.
Yeah. That one manga that everyone loves and remembers.
Yeah.
You know the one, listener.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can check that stuff out. You can also check out our stuff, Dismay Comics, social media stuff, making comics, all that. Any plugs or updates to you?
Other than the one in my book, no. So you can cut that.
That's staying in.
Just like the plug in my book. Plugs or updates. Not a lot. I mean, other than the link to the Let's Play channel and the thing, I think we still only have 2 videos up as of recording this. That's very much a take it as we go. We're not committed to a schedule sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's something we're doing for fun.
Yeah.
Because a long time ago we tried committing to a schedule, and it's just one of our members was dying, so because he was the one doing the majority of the work.
Yeah.
So we don't do that anymore. Because that's kind of the nature of what happens when one guy owns all the recording equipment, one guy is an idea guy, and then the third guy just shows up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Is the guy with all the recording equipment ends up doing all the work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we that one's there's a link to that in the doodly doo.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I'm not working on anything specific right now. So
I gotcha. Yep. You can check out all of the links. All the links are below. You can follow all the stuff or not. You don't have to follow Dismay Comics. You can if you want to. It's no pressure. It's up to you. But I foresee that you will follow it.
yeah,
I see into the future, and I see that you will follow it. I see that you will become a crazed fan somehow.
I see that you will
make-
find Brandon's home address.
You will make an assassination attempt. Keep in mind, I said attempt. Was not successful.
We will call you Ceiling Guy.
But then the second one, you were successful. You blew my head off. So,
Oh my god.
not saying when that will happen,
Oh my
but
god.
just know your first assassination attempt, you fail miserably. It is hilarious. But in the second one, you win.
Yeah.
You blow my head off.
And then I'm gonna find Brandon's body, and he's gonna be mumbling about weight redistribution or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Weight displacement. That's it.
Yeah.
And how she totally shouldn't have survived that. And I'm gonna be like, what? Then he's gonna tell me with great power comes great responsibility, and then he's gonna die. All with his head blown off.
So, listener, be looking forward to that. All right. I've been Brandon.
And I've been Teo.
And now we're not. Take care.
Take care.